My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
The people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections.
we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
With the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News.
Hello there, very good to see you. 6 o'clock, Monday 29th of April. You're starting your day with breakfast here on GB News. Eamonn Holmeson, Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Tensions are growing between the UK and Ireland as Number 10 has attacked EU double standards and refused to take back asylum seekers until France does the same.
Border Force officials claim Channel migrants are using children as human shields. It's a GB News exclusive.
A clampdown on disability benefits as millions face the biggest welfare reforms in a generation, with many set to lose cash payments.
Yes, the cost of the welfare bill has rocketed. Now conditions such as anxiety and depression may no longer get you benefits. I'll bring you more shortly.
King Charles is to return to public life as he prepares to meet cancer patients following his own diagnosis.
And campaigners and celebrities are set to gather outside Westminster ahead of a Commons debate today on assisted dying.
Good morning. We'll see an east-west split in the weather across the UK today. Outbreaks of rain mainly reserved for western spots. The brightest skies always further east, but I'll have all the details later on.
that assisted dying story in many of the newspapers today. So if you've got a view on it, we want to hear from you today. This is how you get in touch. Esther Ranson, Dame Esther Ranson, saying, no one's going to force a healthcare professional to bump me off, but I don't want to be forced to live longer than I want to. Your views, get in touch, let us know, and we'll debate that throughout the programme.
Our top story, though, this morning, the government has accused the EU of double standards following Ireland's pledge to send asylum seekers back to the UK.
Well, tensions rose after ministers in ERA threatened to draft emergency laws amid concerns the Rwanda plan could increase asylum numbers entering the Republic.
Well, let's speak to the immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson, who joins us to talk about this morning. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us so early. Just explain to us a little bit about sort of the dynamics of what's happening here, because clearly the people crossing the Channel are still coming, 900 last week, but it appears that Rwanda legislation has spooked a number of people already in the country who decided to try to get into Ireland via Northern Ireland, and that is causing this row between Dublin and Westminster.
Indeed. I mean, asylum seekers can do that via Stranraer, and it's quite easy to get across the ferry with little or no ID. But I don't think asylum seekers are that concerned, as you say, because if Labour get in, they will revoke the Rwanda Act. So in any case, any people we send to Rwanda would have to be brought back at a considerable cost. So I don't really understand how this is going to be a deterrent unless there's a massive change in the polls that we're getting and Conservatives get back in, which is highly unlikely.
What a lot of nonsense. Ivan, could you just explain to me why, having gone to all this trouble, that Labour would think that it is in anyone's interest to bring them back from Rwanda?
Well, it's the law, Eamonn. We've got to comply with laws. The government expects me to comply with laws, and if they want me to comply with laws, I expect the government to comply with our international treaty obligations. Now, if we don't like those treaties, let's come out of them. That's for voters to decide to bring a government that wants to do that. But we have to comply with international laws. The Rwanda Act is an unlawful act because it disapplies vast sections of the Human Rights Act. So you've got two different types of legislation in conflict with each other. You cannot also stop people appealing to the European Court of Human Rights, which in fact it does through the back door by the Secretary of State overriding any interim measures by the European courts. So it's an unlawful act. We just have to admit it.
Well, we've heard the arguments at length, I suppose you could say, about the pros and cons of the Rwanda legislation. What I think is new is the Irish element in all of this. And now the Irish are also threatening to use emergency legislation in order to force us to take back those asylum seekers who have come into their country. That's double standards, isn't it? That's hypocrisy from the European Union. Until the French take our migrants that are crossing the busy shipping lane of the Channel, why should we be taking in asylum seekers from Ireland?
Well, we shouldn't, because there's no treaty for us to do that. Every country who has a migrant coming into their territorial waters or on their territorial land has to consider that asylum application within the meaning of the Refugee Convention. But it's very sad, because it appears to me that these asylum seekers are the unwanted. We're playing ping pong with them, and nobody wants them. Some of the most vulnerable people in the world fleeing. I mean, 60% of those crossing the Channel are genuine refugees, being described as illegal migrants, or we don't want you, we go somewhere else. I mean, that seems to be the attitude of all the countries in the Channel. I mean, all three, France, Britain and Ireland, nobody wants these people. It must be very sad for those fleeing persecution to be treated in this way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious message. I mean, the message is there, which nobody seems to accept. You're not wanted. Our countries can't take you. Ireland, who had opened doors to everybody, now, of course, are completely clogged up. I mean, the whole situation, Ivan, in the Republic of Ireland has got totally out of hand, and they're saying, oh, come and stay with us, all be with us. Now they don't want migrants.
Look, the countries have to work together. We can't do what Australia did. And that the government's copying Operation Sapphire. This is where all this came about. Push the boats back, let's not have them. It came about from the Australian model. And it didn't work because the Australians realised the cost of sending people abroad was astronomical. It was like $1 million per person. And I don't think the cost of sending two people to Rwanda is any much less than that. So that's not the answer. The answer has to be a treaty with the EU. It worked under the Dublin Convention. We need to have a similar treaty that if you don't claim asylum in Europe, you cannot claim asylum here. And if you do that, we will send you back. The proper screening
wasn't hugely successful, but I'm interested though. Von der Leyen, obviously the EU Commissioner, she's saying that they now want to copy our Rwanda deal. So you can't have it both ways, can you? That we're these outliers and we're breaking all these European conventions, and yet the Europeans are now looking at what we're doing, going, "Oh, that looks like a good idea."
Listen, look, we've got to uphold the law. You cannot, as a government, ask people to break the law. It's wrong. The civil servants themselves are in a very difficult position because there was a policy of pushing back migrants. And the civil servants, the border force said, we're not going to do that unless you give us immunity. I mean, this government really hasn't got a grasp of this problem. The border force are not securing our borders. Our borders are really determined, the people coming across, by the weather. I mean, if you have nice weather, we have loads of people. If you have a bad weather, we don't. It's not by the actions and policies and strategies of our border force. And it's an absolutely shameful state of affairs. We need to sack the head of the border force, sack the immigration minister, and get people in who can do the job. Or even better, get rid of this government and get a new government in that can get a handle on this.
But Ivan, you're missing the whole point. This country can't take all these people. Now, we've got all sorts of do-gooders like you who are saying, you know, rightly, awful where these people come from, awful what they're going through, but it's awful what's happening in this country as well. And if you've got up to 1 million people a year coming in illegally or legally into this country, we simply do not have the infrastructure. We can't afford to look after them. We can't afford to look after the people who are already here. And people are saying, what about our own homeless? What about our own people who haven't got space in hospital and whatever? And surely you can see we're just not capable of accepting all these people.
Well, let me correct those facts, first of all, for you. We don't have 1 million people coming here who are costing us money. Simply not true. Asylum seekers account for about 40 to 50,000 people a year. A lot less than Germany and France, for example, half of what they're taking. Can we afford 50,000 people? I think we can. The other 950,000 that you talk about we can't afford, they actually pay into the system. Let me give you an example. They pay an immigration health surcharge for medical treatment. So as well as paying national insurance contributions for that treatment, they pay additional fee of that surcharge of £1,000 a year. So, and they're paying into the tax system. Most people don't have children.
A huge proportion of net migration is made up of students who obviously aren't earning and they aren't paying national insurance and all of those things. But I accept your point about the percentage of people entering illegally. It's clearly a huge problem. It was interesting, Robert Jenrick over the weekend saying he wants to see net migration into the tens of thousands. Governments have been burnt by this. They won't pin a number down ever again, I don't think. But do you have a figure in your mind of what you think would be affordable, acceptable to you?
We shouldn't. Look, if we could have no migration at all, wonderful. If we had British people or settled people to do the jobs, that would be fantastic. The problem is we don't. The shortage of skilled workers is putting our economy at risk. The migrants that people complain about, most of them are skilled workers under the skilled worker visa. We don't have people to do the jobs. So as long as there's a gap, we will continue to recruit people from abroad. Now, if we have a long-term plan to educate our youngsters, to get those skills, get people into those jobs, we won't need to rely upon foreign workers. So it's a long-term solution, not a short-term one.
What a complex situation. Ivan, thank you for putting your arguments and your counter-arguments with all of this. It's certainly food for thought for people today. We'll leave it with you. We'll ask everybody else watching and listening at home, what do you think of what Ivan has had to say or what we've had to say to him? Where do you stand on this? I suspect you listen to the arguments for and against and you still say, sorry, the doors are closed, we're not interested. gbnews.com/have your say. Your say is there. get involved in that whole conversation.
And sticking with the topic, Border Force officials have told GB News of their concerns of Channel migrants using children as human shields to stop police puncturing their small boats.
Yeah, OK, we're going to talk about this. We're also going to talk about the Irish situation. We want to know if you live in the Republic of Ireland. Get in touch with us today because we want to know your migrant experience. All very nice, all very good. Then it all went very wrong. Why? Let's go to our Home and Security editor, Mark White. Now, Mark's been given exclusive access to the whole small boats operation in Dover. Here's what he saw.
This is a rare look inside the small boats operational command at Dover Harbour. As we filmed, the Border Force vessel Defender was alongside, offloading another 66 Channel migrants, the latest of more than 7,000 who've arrived here so far this year. And this, their mode of transport, large but extremely flimsy inflatable rafts, made for the criminal gangs in backstreet factories.
I mean, these aren't seaworthy for anything because they are just not made to any standard.
Trevor Taylor has seen increasing numbers packed into these vessels. 70 or 80 migrants on each boat is now common.
It's just not safe. The way it's constructed, I mean, this is typical where if there was a cut or a puncture in one part of this boat, the whole thing would go down.
Makeshift puncture repair kits and cheap pumps are often all the migrants have as they battle to stay afloat. And there are very few, if any, effective life jackets.
Just show you an example of that. And that's probably not just for a child. They'll probably give that to an adult as well, saying that's going to save you. Another example, just back here, is an inner tube. We quite often see them, or they're handed out in a packet. So basically, if you panic, inflate one of those yourself.
And the engines too are completely unsuitable for the English Channel, lacking power and prone to breaking down.
You look at the engine, you might think, yeah, that's a proper engine, something you might expect. However, the organised crime groups, they put stickers like this on there, so 30, trying to trick you into thinking, 30 horsepower. In reality, it's somewhere between 10 and 15, so really not suitable to go on the boat itself, especially at sea.
The surge in violence along the French coast is of huge concern to authorities on both sides of the Channel. Staff in Dover have seen increasing numbers of migrants arriving with injuries, including stab wounds.
The violence that is now shown to our French colleagues trying to prevent the launches, trying to save these people from putting their lives at risk is huge. We've seen them attacked with sticks, metal bars, machetes, using women and children that are there to cross, using them as human shields to prevent law enforcement taking action. And it's growing, it's getting worse.
This quayside here at Dover Harbour is where the Channel migrants first set foot on British soil. Of course, if Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan comes to full fruition, then they won't be here for long. Many of them will be on a flight to East Africa. But those flights are likely still months away, and as weather conditions improve in the weeks ahead, many more of these flimsy migrant boats will arrive in UK waters, unseaworthy and dangerously overloaded. Mark White, GB News, at the Small Boats Operational Command in Dover.
Mark, that's a big theme for us tonight, the programme this morning. Some other stories coming into the newsroom. This is what we've got for you.
Reports claim Humza Yousaf is preparing to quit as Scotland's First Minister after deciding his leadership is no longer tenable. Ministers have been told the SNP leader decided over the weekend that there is no way for him to survive this week's vote of no confidence. We'll stay across that story for you this morning and bring you any updates as we get them.
And your views welcome. More human remains have been found in 2 locations in Greater Manchester after a torso was discovered in a nature reserve. Greater Manchester Police say they believe the victim was a man in his 60s from Salford. His family have been informed.
A British tourist who was seriously injured in a shark attack off a Caribbean island is aware of what's happening and can communicate in intensive care, his wife has revealed. Peter Smith was savaged 10 metres off the shore near the Starfish Hotel in Corland Bay on the north coast of Tobago on Friday morning.
Awful story, that. So this man, he was aware he was being eaten, mauled, attacked by this shark. I mean, being in the water and just being devoured.
I mean, the chances of a shark attack are so small, but I just still always have an irrational fear every time I go in the sea. I just can't enjoy swimming in hot seas because I just always think I'm going to be eaten.
Well, they're in the cold seas now as well. Here, they're off the coast of Britain.
Yeah, but they're not bitey ones.
Oh, they are?
Have we had any shark attacks?
No, they are. It's because the way the thermals of the world are changing. The sort of hot
great. Another benefit.
Yeah, no, they are. They are. 6:16 is the time. Government set to overhaul disability benefits. Millions of you facing the biggest welfare reform in a generation.
Yeah, so those who are suffering from conditions including depression and anxiety could now lose their cash handouts in favour of talking therapies and social care packages.
Well, let's go to Catherine Foster, who's here to tell us more on all of this. Do you know, Catherine, whether this is needed or not, I'm just looking and thinking, here we go, another election game, make people think we're going to be tough on benefits and da-da-da-da. Is this serious?
They are serious about it because basically it's costing the government, i.e. the taxpayer, ultimately an absolute fortune, and the cost has gone through the roof since the pandemic.
What if it's justifiable? Well, how can you turn around and say, well, you're disabled, therefore you don't deserve this? That's going to be a tough call to make.
Well, certainly, and there will be lots of people will be up in arms, but what the government is saying is particularly conditions like anxiety and depression that have gone up significantly, especially since the pandemic.
Invisible conditions, stuff that you can't really prove.
They are saying it's much better to keep people in work, and work can actually be good for you and good for your mental health. And rather than basically paying people to sit at home, let's help you with talking therapies, with other things. They want to save a lot of money because at the moment it's costing $50 billion a year for working age sickness benefits. That's projected to go up by 20 billion more by the end of the decade. A couple of problems. I think there's nearly 2 million people on NHS waiting lists for mental health treatment and support. So it's all very well saying you're better with talking therapies, but 2 million people waiting for mental health support. The government saying, we're going to give an extra 400,000 talking therapies. But still, you know, we've got these huge logjams in the NHS. But the government think it's needed. They say we can't afford it. Taxpayers won't tolerate these rising bills. And the other thing is, as you've said, they're making a dividing line with Labour. Labour haven't responded saying what they will do, but Rishi Sunak, apart from the defection of Dan Poulter, did have a really good week or so. He had the announcements on welfare benefits just over a week ago. Then they finally get the Rwanda plan through Parliament. Then he was in Poland and Berlin. I was with him. I have to say, this big announcement on defence spending, he did seem in a really, really good, upbeat mood. I mean, let's face it, they're 20 points behind in the polls. But he didn't seem to me like a man about to call a general election.
OK, but we've got the local elections.
But he has to pay for that. Is he paying for it with these sort of cuts?
Pay for?
The defence spending.
Well, they've said that they're going to pay for the defence spending largely by cuts to the civil service, 70,000 jobs, to take it back to the size it was before the pandemic. We're not quite convinced that that is going to cover it. It does sound like ultimately there will be other cuts somewhere, and we don't know where. So that's an open question.
So you thought the PM looked buoyed at the end of last week. Then we've had Dan Poulter over the weekend defecting, huge blow, and we all know that the local elections are going to be, I mean, difficult is a mild way of putting it, I suppose. Yeah. And reports over the weekend of yet more Tory rebel plots to possibly oust him. I mean, are we genuinely looking at a situation where there could be a vote of no confidence in Rishi Sunak, that there could be either a coronation or a new leader this time next week being announced? Leadership contest of some sort?
It is possible. They need just over 50 letters to Sir Graham Brady. The estimates from the rebels are currently 20-something. I personally think that it's unlikely to happen. Obviously, the Conservatives are going to have an awful time with the local elections, because the last time these seats came up, it was the sort of high watermark, it was the vaccine bounce, Boris Johnson 2021. So they're defending about 1,000 seats. They expect to lose about half of them. I think Rishi Sunak can weather that. I think if some of the mayoral ones that are up, Ben Houchen in Tees Valley, Conservative Mayor Andy Street in the West Midlands, if they both lost, that would send a very worrying signal. And I think then there could be a flurry of letters going in. Whether it would be enough, I don't know. But, yeah, some talk of Penny Mordaunt being lined up to be a
She doesn't want it.
Well, why would you want it at this point, given the chances are they are going to be out of office? Why would you not want to wait and be
leave Rishi with the poison chalice?
Exactly. So I personally think it's unlikely. But then, you know, Boris Johnson got an 80-seat majority. They got rid of him. We had another Prime Minister for 7 weeks. They got rid of her. I mean, politics has been crazy. So never say never.
Yeah, true. Anything's possible.
So disability benefits, welfare benefits, particularly those to do with mental health, if you're receiving those, people should be worried that those may not last.
Well, certainly mental health, what they're going to describe as sort of ordinary worries, the ordinary problems of life, that you need to be supported and work through those. I mean, obviously there's a spectrum with anxiety and depression, which goes from quite mild and able to function to potentially suicidal. So I do think the government have got to be very, very careful with this.
Catherine, thank you.
Thank you. See, I worry about Paul Coyte today.
Why?
Well, he's not here.
Right.
He's not here. And, you know, just such an awful thing happened to him at the weekend, the North London derby. And
I think that's why he's not here today. He's taken to his sick bed.
Definitely,
He's not
definitely.
sick.
You know, he's a big Spurs man. He commentates, or he introduces players in halftime entertainment and all sorts of things at the Tottenham Stadium. And, you know, and then that victory by Arsenal, I just think...
Send him over the edge.
Might have been a bit too much for him.
Dear. Well, we miss you, Paul. We hope you get over it soon.
I didn't say that. I said he isn't here.
I said I missed him. There you go. The story of the weather is going to be a country of two halves. Marco Patagna will explain it much better. Here's your forecast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK during the week ahead, all of us seeing some rain at times, but temperatures will also be on the rise. Back to the detail for today now, and we've got an east-west split weather-wise across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving in across many western spots from the south, turning heavy at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk breeze too. That rain reaching Scotland as we head into the afternoon. So it's the east and southeast that's set to hold on to the best of the conditions. Certainly the southeast of England seeing plenty of sunshine, and in the sunshine it should feel fairly pleasant out and about, with fairly gentle winds towards the southeast too. Temperatures peaking at 16 or 17 degrees, near 12 to 14 towards the northwest. As we head into the evening and during the overnight period, further outbreaks of rain will move in across many northern and western parts of the UK, moving up there from the south and again turning quite heavy in nature at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk southerly wind. So it's always the southeast holding on to the clearest skies, but wherever you are, it will be a frost-free night, certainly much milder than in recent nights, lows in the range 7 to 10 Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, the east-west split continues with further pulses of rain moving up across many western spots as we go through the day. Again, the outbreaks of rain turning heavy at times and still quite breezy out across western areas, whereas further east, plenty of fine weather around, lots of sunshine, but notice 1 or 2 showers developing across the southeast as we head into the afternoon. Temperatures are still on the climb, though, up to 18 Celsius towards the southeast, so still pretty warm for the time of year, near 17 degrees at best in the north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Stay with us, still to come. Can we expect a reunion from King Charles and his son Prince Harry as the runaway prince makes a comeback? Find out after this.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
The people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections.
We'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
With the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News. 2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument. We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News.
Britain's news channel. We're about to report on some good news finally for the royal family as we hear that King Charles is set to return to public life tomorrow.
And with just a week to go before Prince Harry visits the UK to mark the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games, could a family reunion be on the cards?
OK, joining us now, former BBC royal correspondent Michael Cole. Michael, morning, good to see you. Is it a priority, a family reunion, or is the Invictus Games the priority?
Good morning, Eamonn. Good morning, Isabel. Well, we're almost falling over the anniversaries, the royal anniversaries at the moment. A week from today is the first anniversary of the coronation. As you say, Prince Harry will be in town next week for a celebration and a service of Thanksgiving at St Paul's Cathedral for the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games. A brilliant innovation by him, something upon which we can congratulate him, and to remember what he used to do when he was the happy prince and fulfilling a very vital function. And of course, today, of all days, a bright and sunny day 13 years ago, that saw the wedding of the Prince and Princess of Wales at Westminster Abbey, and we were all getting together for that. By the way, a 13th wedding anniversary, I can tell you, is called a lace wedding. So if you want to give gifts of lace or linen, tablecloths, sheets and so on. So that would be appropriate. Next year, a bit of a problem for Prince William because a 14th wedding anniversary is an ivory wedding anniversary. And of course, the Prince is dead set against anything to do with ivory, not just stopping the trade, but he wants to get all the ivory out of the royal connections and have it destroyed. That maybe will have to wait if and when he becomes king. So as you say, Eamonn, a lot going on these times. We'll see what happens when Harry comes. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he has a meeting with his father. I cannot see in any way, shape or form that there will be a meeting with his older brother. The trouble there is too deep. The hurt is too deep, and that's going to take a lot of fence mending. If I can put it like this, I think Prince Harry would have to mend enough fences to completely encircle the 20,000 acres of the Sandringham Royal Estate before his brother will start speaking to him again. So it'll be an interesting watch for next week, but I think people will also be remembering the glory of the coronation just a little bit over a year ago.
Yes, gosh, hasn't that flown past? And what a year it has been. And fantastic to see that the King has responded so well to his treatment. I was hearing this morning that Prince Harry and Meghan are planning a trip to West Africa soon. Do you know what this is all about and why he's chosen Nigeria specifically?
Yeah, well, of course, Nigeria is the most populous country in the whole of Africa. And apparently they met somebody who's a high up in Kano, in the Nigerian capital, and he's invited them there, and they've responded to it. It reminds you of the sort of things that he was so good at doing. He was a good communicator. He's a good public speaker, as we've witnessed. He was playing a very full part in the royal family before he went into self-imposed exile in America. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think this is a putative alternative court being set up in the California Camelot on the hilltop in Montecito. But why not go out there? The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, has made it very clear that she identifies very strongly with people from African heritage. And now she can see it in all its glory in Nigeria, which of course has very strong links with this country over many, many years. But I think we ought to have 3 cheers for the Waleses today, because although they've been married for 13 years, they were together for 7 years before that. So in a way, it's a 20th anniversary as well as being a 13th. And what has happened? What has happened in that time? You know, 3 children, and now the princess is so bravely, gallantly, and commendably facing up to the terrible challenges that come with cancer treatment, while at the same time rearing and bringing up very nicely 3 lovely children.
Here, can't disagree with that. Can I ask you why well, I mean, that's an obvious question, really, but why Meghan isn't accompanying Harry to London for this Invictus Games event coming up, and indeed the possible meeting with the King?
Well, obviously, they always have their own reasons. They don't tell us very much, but I think, Isabel, you've twigged it anyway. You understand that. It would, of course, bring the spotlight onto her. And I'm quite sure that neither of them wants that at this particular moment. We have to remember that what Prince Harry did, he saw something that was missing. He'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan. I think he came back on a transport plane with coffins containing the bodies, the mortal remains of British soldiers, and he met and knew people who'd been terribly injured, and he saw there was a need for this, and it was immediately recognized worldwide. I mean, more than a dozen, maybe 20 countries are now taking part, enlisting their disabled and injured service people in these games, and that's a brilliant initiative. And I commend him for that. And I think everybody, right-thinking people, would do so. So it just actually underscores what's been lost, what he has lost by severing ties with the country which he says he loves and will always love, and what we've lost in the Princess Diana's 2nd son. And, you know, I think of her because she's much missed. And she said to those boys, she made them promise when they were quite young that they would always be there for each other, that they would always support each other. And they made that promise. And I hope that maybe Prince Harry reflects upon his mother's wishes and his mother's words while he's here in London, the city of his birth, and maybe starts to do something to reconcile. At the moment, the sides are too far apart. But who knows? There's always a possibility. I think in this life, one of the most terrible things you can ever see is brothers fighting. And when they're brothers of the royal blood, it's somehow even worse.
OK, sad thought to end on. Michael, thank you very much indeed. We'll leave it there. Appreciate it. We'll have more royal talk 9:15 this morning. Angela Levin, the royal author, we have her live on the programme for her thoughts.
We're joined now to discuss the government's crackdown on disability benefits by the Work and Pension Secretary, Mel Stride. Good morning to you. You are announcing what's being described as the biggest change to welfare benefits in a generation, and you've identified something that is a huge problem for taxpayers, claims having doubled since before the pandemic, costing us £28 billion a year. How are you going to resolve this problem?
Well, what we've launched today is a consultation on the future of something called the Personal Independence Payment. That is something that's paid to disabled people as a contribution to the additional costs of their disability. And look, you're absolutely right. That benefit, along with others, actually, in terms of costs, have been spiralling ever upwards. And we know that over the next 5 years, currently, PIP is due to be costing an additional £13 billion per year. So we need to look at the financial sustainability of benefits. But specifically on PIP, I think it's very important we also ask key questions about how it operates. Is it properly targeting those who need the help most? One of the concerns I have, for example, are those with progressive, lifelong conditions where currently we know, sadly, people will not be getting better through time, and yet they're having to go through reassessments, jump through bureaucratic hoops and so on. And I want to really look at whether that's appropriate and we can't do things better. I want to look at best practice internationally, and I want to look at the nature of the support that's actually provided. Should it be cash benefits, or should we also be looking, for example, at healthcare support for those, particularly those that are on PIP through reasons of mental health conditions?
Explain that one to us, Mel, because the danger is that the people who are suffering in some way, whether mentally or physically, will just be left without help. How do you see their treatment progressing?
Well, if you have somebody who's on PIP at the moment and they have a health condition, they would be receiving typically a fixed amount of money per month in order to help them with costs. Now, what actually may be more important in those circumstances will be effective treatment. Now, the Chancellor announced 400,000 additional talking therapies within the NHS, for example, in the last budget. Now, that combined often actually with assistance and help getting people into employment if they're not already in employment and receiving PIP, are the kind of things that can make a huge difference to people's lives. And we see different approaches around the world. And in fact, we're very interested in our consultation in looking what other countries are doing here. Nobody is doing it quite the way we're doing it. And I think there's a lot that we can potentially learn from what other countries are doing.
And whilst we've been in the midst, and we are still in the midst of this sort of policy blizzard coming from government at the moment, lots of announcements taking place, there are undoubtedly some challenges for the Prime Minister specifically coming up. We've had the defection over the weekend, rumours of yet more rebellions and possibly a vote of no confidence for the Prime Minister, and of course Thursday looming large. How confident are you that this time next week we won't be talking about possibly a new Prime Minister, a new person to lead the Conservative Party?
No, I really don't think that that is going to happen. And the reason is that I think my colleagues in Parliament know that what we've got to focus on now are the great successes that we've had, and we've got to continue to communicate. So, for example, the reduction in the level of inflation down from 11.1 to 3.2%. That's taking a lot of those cost pressures off from people. Real wages have been rising now for 9 consecutive months. We've seen since September of last year 200,000 fewer people on those NHS backlogs. We've made this commitment to spend more on defence. We're cutting people's taxes. Right now, £900 per year less in tax due to the national insurance double taxation that we've been reducing. So those are the things that we've got to communicate. And I think the vast majority of my colleagues in Parliament know that.
OK, I've got to ask you about the situation with Dublin, confrontation brewing, frankly, between yourselves and them. How do you resolve this? I mean, do you think that there is a bit of hypocrisy going on here in terms of insisting we take back these asylum seekers that want to get away from the Rwanda deal and seek refuge in Ireland?
Well, I think what we know is that we've now passed the Rwanda bill, and we're already seeing some of the effect of that happening in the sense that some people are now thinking, well, I'm going to potentially be sent to Rwanda and therefore the UK is a less attractive place to be in. And that's the very purpose of the bill. Now, as to what's happening in Ireland, we're not in a position where we're able, for example, to return people to France who come here illegally. And so I think that, you know, is kind of plays into the discussions and the position that we're in when it comes to people that are going across the Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland border. But look, we will be working very closely with Irish counterparts. I know that the Home Secretary is soon to have a meeting with his Irish counterpart to look at these things, but we certainly don't have any plans to be in there standing in the way of people leaving the UK. The whole purpose of the policy, in fact, is to act as a deterrent, and I think what you're seeing here is the early signs of that deterrent working.
Stride, thanks for your time. Thanks for your opinions. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right, the Great British Giveaway, new competition, big cash prize. In fact, it's the biggest cash prize, 20 grand, and it could be yours.
Here's how.
We've blown the budget by giving you the chance to win a totally terrific £20,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer spectacular. You could use that cash to splash out on a holiday, make the garden glam, buy a new car, or just save it for a rainy day. Whatever you'd spend £20,000 on, make sure you don't miss the chance to make it yours. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
What's making the news? Paula London, Chris Akabusi, they're next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Now in Murray, they've had the A96 closed in both directions across the weekend for roadworks between Keith and the A98 at the Fochabers East roundabout. Should be back open by now. In Lincolnshire, the A158 is blocked by an accident at the Gunby roundabout. Now in Warwickshire, the A444 is closed in both directions along the Leicester Road off the A47 in Nuneaton for an investigation. In Kent, the A20 is partly blocked westbound, heading in to West Kingsdown after an accident. Also in Kent on the A249, there are southbound queues towards roadworks just before junction 5 of the M2 at the Stockbury roundabout at Sittingbourne. And in West Sussex, there's a report of a couple of ponies on Henfield Road at Small Dole between Beeding and Henfield. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
What?
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
OK, so what's got everybody talking today? Let's have a look at the front pages of the papers. Guardian, first of all.
Yeah, they're leading with the Home Office's Rwanda plan as deportation preparations get underway in a shock move today.
Who's that woman? Who's that? Is that a film star?
Nicole Kidman.
Was it Nicole Kidman? All right. There's Meghan and Harry. Yeah, that's Nicole. Well, what's she in?
She's just got a Lifetime Achievement Award, first Australian to get it in LA last night.
Oh? Right, let's go to the Mail. It says tens of thousands of foreign nationals are exploiting short-term visas to stay in the UK. The Mirror leads with Rishi Sunak facing fresh demands to call a general election. Time's up, they say.
The Telegraph leading with the government accusing the EU of double standards after Ireland vowed to send asylum seekers to the UK.
Times leads with threat to benefits, which we've just been talking about, and joining us to go through what is there and making the news, we've got Paula London and we've got Chris Akabusi. Very good to see you both.
Morning.
Right, where are we going to begin here? Chris, this whole thing about the depressed may lose benefits, we've just talked to the Work and Pension Secretary about this. They're going to try and continue with therapies. They'll take the money away, but they'll still have to pay for therapies for people.
Yes, yeah, Mel Strider, I heard you speaking to him. I think a society should be measured on how well it takes care of the people who can't take care of themselves. It seems like an easy win for the government, but I've got experience of mental health issues in my sort of family. And I do remember once this person, I'm trying to sort of protect him, this person really being upset because his benefits were being taken away, and his challenge was you don't really know what's going on in my life, and he spiralled out and then pretty quickly was put back on his medication again. I know this is talking about benefits as opposed to medication, but I'm wondering how you really assess whether people require this PIP or not. Now, I do get it that over the last sort of 20 years, we've got a lot more familiar and comfortable talking about mental health issues, things like ADHD, dyslexia, OCD are in our lexicon now.
And people expecting to be compensated for it, either in form of payment or treatment. I mean, particularly youngsters.
Yes, exactly. Well, the treatment that Mel Strider, the government, trying to say, OK, let's go on to therapies, talking therapies, CBT, person-central therapy, Gestalt. Let's talk about the issue, because his position is some of them are just stuff we've got to get on. Now, there is anxiety just being in life, isn't
Well, this is what Mel Strider said. He said, we should not be paying people to deal with the ordinary difficulties of life.
Yeah.
And I think the Prime Minister has said that he doesn't want to see those people who have genuine conditions being parked on benefits. And I think that was an interesting phraseology.
That's great language as well.
Because I think you can
ordinary
actually...
difficulties of life.
Well, that was Mel Strider, but I think the parked bit from the PM was interesting, because actually what they're trying to say is getting back to work, having those social interactions can help with your mental health problems. Not all of them. They're obviously talking about these speaking therapies and other practices, but to sit at home parked, dwelling on your problems, the thing is, something the best for the country.
No, I mean, we have to think about it physically. We need to have grown-up conversations. So many people are speaking about it, and they're saying, how dare you demonise people that have mental health conditions? And this is not what I'm saying. In 2020, 42 billion was spent on people with disabilities, their health conditions. It's now 69 billion. This is not sustainable. And the fact of the matter is that people don't really like to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. You can get more money sitting on your backside than getting up and going to work full-time. And people that get PIP, that's £700 a month. You do not have to have a physical disability to get that. And then you can get universal credit, and then you can get LCWRA. So this totals £1,500, and housing is on top. So a lot of people are breaking their back to go to work, and then people are sitting at home getting more money. And people that have physical disabilities, I have a huge amount of empathy for, and people with mental disabilities, but too many people are playing the system.
It does seem like a dramatic increase since pre-pandemic. It's doubled in the last 5
people have got
years.
used to being paid to sit at home with COVID. And then, if they know they can go to their doctor, say that they're depressed, and sit at home and get more money than working full-time in a job you don't like, this is why people are doing it.
I think you said the word, you mentioned COVID. That was a massive impact on people's mental health. And I don't know about you, but I mean, I don't know anybody who would rather sit home for 700 quid. But
no, not that. They get 700 and 400 universal credit and 400 LCWRA. So that's £1,500, and then the rent's on top. Not many people work full-time, and have £1,500 and their rent paid. So that's the problem.
Well,
it's a little too generous.
What you think? Your say is the way to do it. gbnews.com/your say. Is it too generous? Are we a nation of scroungers, as some people seem to think, or as Chris was saying there, you should judge a society by how they treat their sick. Let's move on to something less controversial, shall we, Paula?
Yeah.
And Rwanda. The Guardian today talking about this operation to sweep up some of these guys that are going to be on the first flight. It wasn't expected to be so soon. It's happening from today.
Do you know what I think is absolutely amazing? Is they're not tricking people. A lot of people that have been arrested that are asylum seekers, for me, they should be deported immediately because they're taking advantage of our good nature. You know, if you're a genuine asylum seeker, the last thing you should do is go to the country that's trying to help you and then commit a crime in their country. So once these people are on bail, they're catching them and saying, right, we're going to put you down to go to Rwanda. So I think that's very, very good. And these people should be the first to be told to go, the ones that are on bail. So yeah, it's a great thing. I do feel bad for the Irish people though, because a lot of British people that have come here as asylum seekers are now going to Ireland. So I do feel bad that they've got a big problem in Ireland themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a good thing, and I think this could, you never know, Rishi Sunak could win the election if the Rwanda scheme works.
The Irish thing, I think, has to be highlighted because for too long, Ireland, Chris, was shown as the land of milk and honey for migrants, and the doors are open and everybody's welcoming. And then the tide turned big time, and now they're in a situation where they're saying, we're not taking people that are coming in from Northern Ireland because they're worried. The ones in Northern Ireland are worried that they may be rounded up and sent to Rwanda. So they're saying, let's head across the border down south, and down south realise they've got a huge problem, and their people have turned against this whole idea of open door policy. And so what has to be done?
Well, so it's interesting for me then that the people who came across on boats or wherever they've come over, on lorries to the UK have actually gone back to the European Union via Ireland. That's what we're saying. My part is, OK, so send them back to mainland Europe. I'm not so comfortable about this Rwanda policy business. I don't know how effective it's going to be, except for I do get that it will be a massive tick on Mr Sunak's box of, I'll get the job done. I said I'm going to do it. I've done it. Check me out. So I think, you know, one of the other things about the election, he may be waiting to show that he's an effective politician and he got the job done with people who were on that very first flight. I don't know how many people are going to be on the flight. One of the papers says that there was 5,000 or 7,000 people have come across into the country on small boats since the turn of the year. Well, how many of those 7,000 are going to go? Or do we start with a massive queue of people that are here ad infinitum?
We should start with the people that are on bail, the ones that have already been arrested for a crime in this country, 100%, because the main reason I want to stop the boats is because of national security and the safety of people. It's the safety. These people, they're already on bail when they've come over here. They're not going to be good British citizens. We don't want these people. Yeah.
I want to ask both of you, when you're out and about shopping, have you noticed the cost of living crisis and how expensive things are? I was watching a farming programme last night and they were talking about how the terrible wet weather, Chris, has just killed the wheat harvests and things like that, and therefore the result of all of this is bread, biscuits, beer will rise in price.
Yeah, look, I think we've struggled since the war in Ukraine and Russia, and them being a breadbasket, and we've seen, you know, interest rates, the rise in retail costs, and you just go to the shops and just look at your basic necessities, how expensive it really is today. And then you've got this as a looming crisis coming down the road. I happened to be in Lincolnshire last week visiting a brewery, a great like 150-year tradition brewery. And when you drive through Lincolnshire, you can see the beautiful fields of cauliflowers and wheat and stuff, and the devastation of the rain. So I've been complaining because I can't play my golf. That's a small beer compared to, we can't feed ourselves because we can't.
Food crisis.
Yeah, we can't plant things in time. And we can't harvest in time. You know, because the farmer relies on the conditions, obviously, to harvest in due time.
Yeah, I mean, grocery inflation is much higher than CPI. And I've noticed, like, even on Deliveroo or other apps, similar apps, I wanted to buy some ketchup, for instance, and on one supermarket it was £3, and another supermarket it was £5. So
for the same bottle,
for the same size. So it's just blatant profiteering, seeing if they can get away with it. But one of my favourite biscuits are actually malted milk, and they're only 20p, so that's still the same price, and I love them.
Well, be careful when you say that, because shrinkflation has really come on my radar. Yeah, same price, but half the packet.
Well, that's good. I'll lose some weight then, you know. But yeah, the gross inflation is very bad, but you need to shop around because people are just taking advantage.
Again, there was a programme on Channel 4 last night presented by the amazing Denise Van Outen, and it was talking about own brands as against branded soap powders and biscuits and whatever. And basically, they came to the conclusion there is no difference. Yeah. There's absolutely no difference. Well, just save money buying the supermarket own brand.
Yeah. Well, often they're actually manufactured by the same person, aren't they? Yeah. So it's just the psychology. They're manufactured, come right out of the same factory distribution centre.
Yeah.
It's just branded differently.
We just got to get out of that habit of wanting the brand name.
Yeah. It's like makeup too. Sometimes makeup can be cheaper and it's made in the same factory. And
medicines.
Good. Guys, see you again, 45 minutes. Chris and Paula.
Will it be a weather for farmers? Let's find out from Mark and Britannia.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK during the week ahead, all of us seeing some rain at times, but temperatures will also be on the rise. Back to the detail for today now, and we've got an east-west split weather-wise across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving in across many western spots from the south, turning heavy at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk breeze too. That rain reaching Scotland as we head into the afternoon. So it's the east and southeast that's set to hold on to the best of the conditions. Certainly the southeast of England seeing plenty of sunshine, and in the sunshine it should feel fairly pleasant out and about, with fairly gentle winds towards the southeast too. Temperatures peaking at 16 or 17 degrees, nearer 12 to 14 towards the northwest. As we head into the evening and during the overnight period, further outbreaks of rain will move in across many northern and western parts of the UK, moving up there from the south and again turning quite heavy in nature at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk southerly wind. So it's always the southeast holding on to the clearest skies, but wherever you are, it will be a frost-free night, certainly much milder than in recent nights, lows in the range 7 to 10 Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, the east-west split continues with further pulses of rain moving up across many western spots as we go through the day. Again, the outbreaks of rain turning heavy at times and still quite breezy out across western areas, whereas further east, plenty of fine weather around, lots of sunshine, but notice 1 or 2 showers developing across the southeast as we head into the afternoon. Temperatures are still on the climb though, up to 18 Celsius towards the southeast, so still pretty warm for the time of year, near 17 degrees at best in the north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning. In Lincolnshire, the A158 is closed at the Gunby roundabout after an accident. Other approaches to the roundabout are also closed. In Warwickshire, the A444 is closed in both directions along Leicester Road off the A47 in Nuneaton for an investigation. And trains through Nuneaton have also been stopped. On the M4 in Berkshire, there are 2 out of 4 lanes closed eastbound. There's an accident just before junction 5 at Langley causing delays. In Kent on the A249, there are southbound queues towards roadworks just before junction 5 of the M2. The Stockley roundabout in Sittingbourne, it's taking around a quarter of an hour to get through the queues. And in West Sussex, there are 2 ponies on the loose on Henfield Road at Small Dole between Upper Beeding and Henfield. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We've blown the budget by giving you the chance to win a totally terrific £20,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer spectacular. You could use that cash to splash out on a holiday, make the garden glam, buy a new car, or just save it for a rainy day. Whatever you'd spend £20,000 on, make sure you don't miss the chance to make it yours. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
A very good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock. It's Monday, the 29th of April, and you are tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Nice to have your company. Leading our news this morning, this is what we've got. Tensions are growing between Britain and Ireland as Number 10 attacks European Union double standards. He refuses to take back asylum seekers if they come his way, until France does the same with the UK.
Border Force officials claim Channel migrants are using children as human shields. It's a GB News exclusive.
We've been talking about a clampdown on disability benefits. Millions of you face the biggest welfare reforms in a generation. Many of you set to lose cash payments. What do you think of that one? The Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride had this to say.
That benefit, along with others, actually, in terms of costs, have been spiralling ever upwards, and we know that over the next 5 years, currently, PIP is due to be costing an additional £13 billion per year.
Charles is to return to public life as he prepares to meet cancer patients following his own diagnosis.
And campaigners and celebrities are set to gather outside Westminster today ahead of a Commons debate on assisted dying. This is a big one and we're going to be debating it.
Good morning. We'll see an east-west split in the weather across the UK today. Outbreaks of rain mainly reserved for western spots. The brightest skies always further east, but I'll have all the details later on.
So our top story this morning, the government has accused the EU of double standards following Ireland's pledge to send asylum seekers back to the UK.
Now, tensions on this whole front are rising after ministers in Ireland threatened to draft emergency laws because of concerns the Rwanda plan could increase asylum numbers entering the public. In other words, as we go to our Home and Security editor, Mark White. Mark, so people who may be illegally in Northern Ireland are worried that they're going to be sent to Rwanda, so they're thinking, stuff this for a game of soldiers, and they're crossing the border, or they want to cross the border.
Well, this is certainly what they're saying in the Republic of Ireland. I'm not sure how prevalent that actually is. I mean, bearing in mind that although the Rwanda bill has now passed, we are still some months away from any of the asylum seekers that are earmarked to go to Rwanda from being picked up and sent to Rwanda. And quite honestly, we have had a situation where for years, many thousands of people that have come into Ireland from Europe, migrants who've come into Ireland through Europe, have used a loophole there to then move up into the UK through that open border and then across on the ferries across to the UK with no checks at all. That has been happening the other way out of Ireland for many years, as I say. So if there are some going the other way, it's certainly possible. I'm not sure it's in the numbers that they claim in the Irish Republic at the moment. There may be other reasons that's driving them across the border, ties to people that are already in the Republic.
Mark, what about this issue that you've been unearthing about migrants crossing the Channel and using children as human shields?
A great deal of concern, really, about the rapidly intensifying levels of migrant violence that French authorities in particular are facing as they try to deal with these small boats taking off from almost 100 miles of coastline in northern France. Police coming under attack from machetes, even firearms. Someone was injured, seriously injured at the weekend there after being shot in the chest in a migrant camp near Dunkirk. And we've been told exclusively by Border Force that migrants are increasingly using the children as human shields to stop the French authorities getting to them and puncturing these boats. I was giving exclusive access to the Small Boats Operational Command in Dover. This is a rare look inside the Small Boats Operational Command at Dover Harbour. As we filmed, the Border Force vessel Defender was alongside, offloading another 66 Channel migrants, the latest of more than 7,000 who've arrived here so far this year. And this, their mode of transport, large but extremely flimsy inflatable rafts, made for the criminal gangs in backstreet factories.
I mean, these aren't seaworthy for anything because they are just not made to any standard.
Trevor Taylor has seen increasing numbers packed into these vessels. 70 or 80 migrants on each boat is now common.
It's just not safe. The way it's constructed, I mean, this is typical where if there was a cut or a puncture in one part of this boat, the whole thing would go down.
Makeshift puncture repair kits and cheap pumps are often all the migrants have as they battle to stay afloat. And there are very few, if any, effective life jackets.
Just show you an example of that. Yeah, and that's probably not just for a child. They'll probably give that to an adult as well, saying that's going to save you. Another example, just back here, is an inner tube. We quite often see them, or they're handed out in a packet. So basically, if you panic, inflate one of those yourself.
And the engines too are completely unsuitable for the English Channel, lacking power and prone to breaking down.
You look at the engine, you might think, yeah, that's a proper engine, something you might expect. However, the organised crime groups, they put stickers like this on there, so 30, trying to trick you into thinking, 30 horsepower. In reality, it's somewhere between 10 and 15, so really not suitable to go on the boat itself, especially at sea.
The surge in violence along the French coast is of huge concern to authorities on both sides of the Channel. Staff in Dover have seen increasing numbers of migrants arriving with injuries, including stab wounds.
The violence that is now shown to our French colleagues trying to prevent the launches, trying to save these people from putting their lives at risk is huge. We've seen them attacked with sticks, metal bars, machetes, using women and children that are there to cross, using them as human shields to prevent law enforcement taking action. And it's growing, it's getting worse.
This quayside here at Dover Harbour is where the Channel migrants first set foot on British soil. Of course, if Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan comes to full fruition, then they won't be here for long. Many of them will be on a flight to East Africa. But those flights are likely still months away, and as weather conditions improve in the weeks ahead, many more of these flimsy migrant boats will arrive in UK waters, unseaworthy and dangerously overloaded. Mark White, GB News at the Small Boats Operational Command in Dover.
OK, Mark, well, thank you very much indeed for that. We appreciate it.
The government is set to overhaul disability benefits. Millions of you will face the biggest welfare reform in a generation.
Those who suffer from conditions including depression and anxiety could lose their cash handouts in favour of talking therapies and social care packages. Let's find out more now from our correspondent Catherine Foster with this one. We had the Work and Pensions Secretary on highlighting all of this. I could maybe argue that it doesn't sound as bad as it did an hour ago when I was talking to you, because basically he was saying, right, if we would substitute the money, maybe rather than take it away. In other words, substitute it for other therapies or treatments.
Yes, and this is their argument, that rather than just basically giving people money in disability payments that mean that they end up staying at home and not working, not contributing to the economy, etc., that many conditions, obviously not chronic health conditions, but things such as depression and anxiety when they are at the milder end of the spectrum, that it would be much better A, for the government's balance sheets, but also for the people themselves, if they were actually supported, given things like talking therapies, other ways of helping them and enabling them to actually work, even if it's part-time, even if it's working from home, because, of course, during the pandemic we saw, didn't we, in fact, lots of jobs can be done from home. So if somebody's suffering from anxiety, social anxiety, gets anxious about leaving the house or going to work, potentially there's ways of working from home that could be found. So, but I think worth bearing in mind, we do have a waiting list of nearly 2 million people waiting for mental health support on the NHS. So it's easier said than done, but also the government really, this is largely about saving money because the welfare bill has gone through the roof and we're paying, I think, 50 billion a year on long-term sickness benefits, and that's only going to rise. So the government really need to sort of grasp this nettle, and it's been something that's been getting worse for a long time and it's sort of been ignored. But of course it's a dividing line with Labour.
Well, that's got to be one of the big reasons behind it as well, not just about finances but throwing the gauntlet down to Labour, because they know Labour can't afford it either, but they're also not going to want to say that they're going to get rid of it because it will be difficult for them going into an election. So it's really put them in a corner.
Yeah, they're trying to lay all sorts of traps for Labour, who, of course, are 20 points ahead in the polls. Labour haven't said how they would respond to these planned benefits changes. There's a green paper out today. It'll be consulted on. And who knows, you know, by the time of the election, these may or may not come to pass. But Labour will have to deal with this huge increase in the cost of welfare sooner or later.
This is what Mel Stride had to say when we spoke to him about 45 minutes ago.
It properly targeting those who need the help most? One of the concerns I have, for example, are those with progressive, lifelong conditions where currently we know, sadly, people will not be getting better through time, and yet they're having to go through reassessments, jump through bureaucratic hoops and so on. And I want to really look at whether that's appropriate and we can't do things better. I want to look at best practice internationally, and I want to look at the nature of the support that's actually provided. Should it be cash benefits, or should we also be looking, for example, at healthcare support for those, particularly those that are on PIP through reasons of mental health conditions?
So they're saying, yes, mental health, there's other ways of supporting people, but also saying at the other end of the scale, where people have really clear illnesses that mean they can't work, they want to make it easier for them to keep those benefits. And the government do also, Rishi Sunak thinks that this is a moral mission. You know, they think it's simply wrong that large numbers of people, I think 2.8 million on long-term sickness, are simply sitting at home and not working, not contributing, and that it's also bad for them as well as bad for the economy.
Okay. Catherine, thanks very much indeed. Let us know at home what you think about this story. I thought the language that Mel Stride chose in an interview he's done with The Times today was interesting. He said, we should not be paying people to deal with the ordinary difficulties of life. Do you agree, or do you think that's trivialising some of the issues that people are trying to deal with? Do you think perhaps we have become a nation of scroungers and it's time to turn that around? Let us know your thoughts.
I don't like the scrounging description. Somebody said to me last week, she said, what sort of benefits do you get for your disability? I said, I don't get any benefits. She said, you know, you're entitled to. I said, but I'm in a job I earn. She said, oh, it doesn't matter. You could still claim. I don't know if that's true or not.
That is true, yeah. You could have a carer's allowance or whatever else it is you wanted if you needed it. And
well, I don't think that's right, if I can afford to pay for that.
Well, yeah.
But however, this whole thing about what Mel Stride said there, that what did we used to do? These used to be just regarded as problems in growing up, problems in day-to-day life, problems that everybody hit periodically. You deal with them, you get on with it and whatever. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm saying that's what we've been used to. That's the way it has always been.
Is it a symptom of society not being a community anymore, that people are having these crises, they aren't able to cope with them? People scattered from their families, people have become more isolated, there are more broken families. You know, there's so many sort of societal issues to all of this.
I agree with you with the family community sort of idea that it used to be, for instance, elderly people. They would, I mean, my grandmother lived with us in our home
until she died.
A young person. And that was, my mum says, that was regarded as her duty.
Absolutely.
And she had to become a nurse, basically, to my father's mother. I'm not making any pronouncement saying that's right.
No, but I think those problems have always been there. But I think now we're turning to the government to say help because we don't have each other. We're not there for each other for whatever reason that we used to be. And that's our thoughts. Let us know what you think and whether or not you are affected by this.
I think an awful thing, and you know, some people may like this, but I think an awful thing is, you know, if you're born in Scotland and you live in London, if in my case, born in Northern Ireland and having to work in London. I've never got used to that. I mean, the idea that everybody I know, my whole sense of community and all my brothers, whatever, all live in Belfast, I find that very, very difficult. And it can be very lonely to do that. But look, it's a whole issue, but I think Isabel raises a very interesting point about the breakdown of community and the breakdown of family and family's role in looking after each other. What role do we as a family have to play in all of that? 7:15 is the time.
Let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. And there are reports that Humza Yousaf is preparing to quit as Scotland's First Minister after deciding his leadership is no longer tenable. Ministers have been told that the SNP leader decided over the weekend there is no way for him to survive this week's vote of no confidence, and we'll be keeping a close eye on any developments for you on that story.
A British tourist who was seriously injured in a shark attack off a Caribbean island is aware of what is happening and can communicate in intensive care, his wife has stated. His name's Peter Smith. He was savaged 10 metres off the shore near the Starfish Hotel in Curland Bay on the north coast of Tobago. That was on Friday morning. We wish him well.
And worries are growing for the financial collapse of Thames Water, with fears it could trigger eye-watering borrowing not seen since the chaos of the Liz Truss mini-budget. Officials are hoping Thames Water could be renationalised before the general election to avoid a total collapse.
That Thames Water situation, I mean, you will get, or you may get, a renationalisation, and so disgusting has been the tenureship of these people who own these utility companies. The whole lot just needs to be taken back under public. I mean, it's a service. It's not, or it shouldn't be a business.
Yeah.
And
you can guarantee that if that's what happens to Thames Water, all the other water companies will follow suit. It's not unique to Thames Water, the mismanagement, and we all get affected by it, and it ends up being more expensive for you and me.
What the political or the financial commentators are saying is the country can't afford it. The country can't afford to take it back. But it's the right thing to do. It should be the right thing to do, and these people should be stripped of owning these utility companies. It's absolutely, if you start looking into it, what they do not do, the pollution that they cause and what they're not prepared to do. They're not prepared. All this rainfall, and I laugh about this, every single day it rains.
Why haven't they built a reservoir?
Yeah. But the thing is, come the summer, we're going to have hosepipe bans, I bet you.
There's a heat wave this weekend. We'll all be in complete panic mode, right?
And the thing is, you'll be told it's your fault. You're having too many showers, or you're having a bath when you shouldn't, or you're watering your garden, or whatever it happens to be. Well, we say, not your fault, their fault. And where they build houses and where they build factories and the amount of water that industry uses. No one seems to talk about that.
And yet it could affect all of us, the cost of borrowing through the roof. That would have impacts on mortgages and all the rest of it. It could be a huge problem. We'll keep an eye on that story for you,
It's not all about money. Oh, well, it is, but it shouldn't be. Marco Patenga, here's the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK during the week ahead, all of us seeing some rain at times, but temperatures will also be on the rise. Back to the detail for today now, and we've got an east-west split weather-wise across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving in across many western spots from the south, turning heavy at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk breeze too. That rain reaching Scotland as we head into the afternoon. So it's the east and southeast that's set to hold on to the best of the conditions. Certainly the southeast of England seeing plenty of sunshine, and in the sunshine it should feel fairly pleasant out and about, with fairly gentle winds towards the southeast too. Temperatures peaking at 16 or 17 degrees, nearer 12 to 14 towards the northwest. As we head into the evening and during the overnight period, further outbreaks of rain will move in across many northern and western parts of the UK, moving up there from the south and again turning quite heavy in nature at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk southerly wind. So it's always the southeast holding on to the clearest skies, but wherever you are, it will be a frost-free night, certainly much milder than in recent nights, lows in the range 7 to 10 Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, the east-west split continues with further pulses of rain moving up across many western spots as we go through the day. Again, the outbreaks of rain turning heavy at times and still quite breezy out across western areas, whereas further east, plenty of fine weather around, lots of sunshine, but notice 1 or 2 showers developing across the southeast as we head into the afternoon. Temperatures are still on the climb though, up to 18 Celsius towards the southeast, so still pretty warm for the time of year, near 17 degrees at best in the north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Talking today, and you are not happy on benefits. Audrey says, I know someone on benefits, never worked a day, owns a big house, 2 cars, a van, a recreational vehicle. He ought to get an Oscar. Danica says, it's not as simple as saying you're depressed and just getting PIP to get you 750 quid a month. You have to qualify for that, wait over a year for assessment, to be spoken to as if you're vermin as well. The media hating you. You have to prove you're actually ill, and a lot of people are declined to do that.
Yeah, we've also been talking about the issue of immigration and this row between Dublin and Westminster. Martha is watching from Ireland this morning. Good morning to you. She says, I'm Irish. I live in the west in a small town called Tulla, and even here we've got asylum seekers, houses full of single men who have nowhere to go and nothing to do all day. I met one the other week in SuperValue and almost no English. I wonder if they will ever even work or just rely on the state.
And the big unspeakable thing, Keith is saying, I am a 50-year-old, I'm straight, I'm white, I'm English, I can't get any work because I don't tick any diversity or inclusion boxes. Now, whether that is right or whether that is wrong, there's no doubt a lot of people believe that. And if you do believe that, let us know, echo that today. If you don't believe it, if you want to shoot that down in flames, let us know as well. 21 minutes past the hour of 7. Good morning.
Yes, and a bit of escapism from all of the serious stories in the news. We have a big cash prize. In fact, our biggest to date, £20,000 in tax-free cash. It could be yours. It is our latest Great British Giveaway.
Wiser.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God, are you joking?
You're joking. Really? Seriously, it's not a wine. What is it?
Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
The next winning call could be answered by you. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Still to come, Ellie Phillips is going to have all our showbiz news for us. She's coming up next after this. But don't forget to stay tuned to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics
and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections,
we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, time for some showbiz news, and hot off the red carpet is Ellie Phillips. Gosh, do you have a rest?
I mean, it's been good because I stopped being sick 2 weeks ago, so suddenly I have this burst of energy.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can finally be at events.
You were out on the red carpet last night. Tell us everything.
So last night it was the Variety Club Show Business Awards, which is an annual event, and it was the 75th year of it. Now, this is a really important
award. Our agent runs that. Were you invited?
No.
Oddly enough, neither was I, but there we go.
Nice one, Jonathan. But yeah, so that was last night, 75th anniversary of it. And for anyone who doesn't know, the Variety Club, it's a charity for disabled and disadvantaged children across the UK, and they do amazing work. And the reason last night's awards are important because they're the Show Business Awards. You're like, what's that got to do with it? But the people who are nominated, shortlisted, and are all involved in the charity in some way. So they've either given up their time to perform and sell tickets to raise money, or they've donated themselves. So there's a lot of philanthropists there last night.
Okay.
Not that I can say that word. Anyway, and last night they raised over £250,000 for the charity. So it is a really important one, and it's a very good night. Big winners on the night. Dame Joan Collins, which was amazing. She was there, and she was presented her award by Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber, and she won for outstanding contribution lifetime to film and television. Obviously, her career. She's 90 years old now.
Gosh, she does.
She was there last night, and I spoke to her on the red carpet, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm carrying on, doing more. Just finished filming something. Why would I stop? Why would I stop?" And I asked her. I said, "Oh, what's the tip to being glamorous, for this length of time?" And she said, "Read my book."
Hilarious.
I loved it.
She's such an operator.
She's an entrepreneur to the heart. She was like, buy my book. I was like, fine, fair enough. As well as that, a really important one, Kate Garraway, she won an award last night. It's the first red carpet outing that she's had since her husband Derek sadly died. She was in really great spirits. She was sad that her daughter wasn't there. You can see Darcy there, actually. When I interviewed her last year, they were at the National Television Awards, because Darcy is in the middle of doing her A-levels, but she said that they are going to plan a nice family holiday this summer. She said it's going to be very different because obviously Derek won't be there, and it was really nice for her last night to have that moment, that uplifting moment, to win outstanding contribution to broadcasting, and that was for TV and radio, because obviously a lot of people know her from Good Morning Britain, but she's also on the radio as well, so that was a lovely one. And she was presented her award by Ben Shepherd. They had a very special moment.
Aww.
James Corden was there, controversial character, and it was really nice. He was presented his award by Ruth Jones from Gavin and Stacey, so everyone was loving it.
There's always rumours about some sort sort of reunion between those two. Any more on that?
No, so we tried to ask, and it's very much like, we'll see. I think they will, because of the success of the Last Christmas one. I think they definitely will do more on that one. And as well as that, Sheridan Smith, she won Outstanding Contribution. They're all outstanding contributions to different things, but hers was as an actress and singer, so she was there as well. So it's quite a good one as well, because a lot of these awards you go to, the big stars aren't there, they just send in a video message. But these guys all really want to be there, because it's not just the recognition for themselves, it's drawing attention to the charity and what the charity does. And all of them in their speeches said how important it is that we help these disabled and disadvantaged children, and they really do. And you hear about the stories through the night, whether it's donating specialist wheelchairs or taking them on days out that they wouldn't necessarily get to go on and enjoy those life experiences when they have things much more difficult than others.
When I was young, the television schedules used to be interrupted by the Variety Club Awards. There was a special programme. That programme was transmitted, whether it was live or recorded, but that had featured in the schedules for the evening.
Yeah. It's a shame it doesn't, to be honest, because it is a really good one, and they had some great performances as well. Alfie Boe performed, Marisha Wallace, and oddly enough, I was there doing the red carpet. My videographer, we noted an age difference here. Ronan Keating turned up and he said, "Who's that?"
Oh,
I was like, "No, you didn't. You didn't."
Gosh, that makes me feel old.
I was like, "I know, I feel old, and I'm not."
Talking of lifetime achievements, and we're talking serious Hollywood A-lister now. Nicole Kidman, front of lots of the papers this morning, looking like an Oscar herself in gold.
Incredible Balenciaga gown, bling bling. So she's been given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the American Film Institute, the AFI. She's the first Aussie to ever receive this award. Even though she was actually born in Honolulu, she grew up in Sydney, Australia. Her parents are Australian. They were just happened to be in Honolulu on an educational trip when she was born. So she technically has dual citizenship. She was presented the award by Meryl Streep, so another Hollywood heavyweight there. And what was really nice is you've just seen there her husband, Keith Urban, a singer. He was there with their 2 teenage daughters. And in his speech, he paid tribute to her and basically said that she showed him what love in action really looks like, because when they got married in 2006, 4 months into their marriage, he went into rehab, and he basically said, "She chose me, she could have walked away, but she saw me through that, she was my rock." So that was really, really important to see that moment.
And they're still married?
They're still married now. And it was nice to see her as well, because obviously she's so incredibly successful with what she's achieved and all the films she's been in.
People forget, of course, she was married to Tom Cruise.
Yeah, she was married to Tom Cruise. She dated Lenny Kravitz.
Oh, right.
Yeah, she had a great time. But no, she's still with Keith Urban, and she said that it's a privilege to make films, and it's a privilege to be able to do what she loves and play very unconventional women, which I think she does really well, because I was looking through all the roles she's had in the past, and I'm like, you can't really put a finger on typecasting for her if you look at everything she's done. And obviously she won an Oscar. She won for Moulin Rouge, which is, I think, one of...
You see, I think that's one of her worst films.
But I love the film. I had fun watching it.
Yeah.
Which would you say is her best film?
Well, not necessarily just films. I loved her in Cold Mountain.
Nice.
And I loved her in... Big Little Lies, which was not a film, but it was when she was the beaten-up housewife, and she was just phenomenal.
And so Reese Witherspoon was there last night as well, at this event, and she paid tribute to her as well, so that was really nice. So all these people she's worked with, and I think that speaks volumes about who you are to work with when other people turn up and want to pay tribute to you in that way.
She made a film in the house across the road from us about 10 years ago. So she did. So every day there were just big spotlights outside this house.
Amazing.
Whatever. And then I saw the film. Can't remember what it was called, but it was very good. It was a thriller where she was stalked by someone or whatever.
Oh, I watched that.
Yeah, she is very good at what she does. Yeah.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's wonderful, and I think my favourite probably would be The Hours, when she played Virginia Woolf. She was really good in that. I mean, it was
she is really accomplished and looks like a supermodel. I mean, she's so statuesque, isn't she?
Incredible. I mean, she's ticking all the boxes. Like, to have 4 children, to achieve what she's achieved, it just shows women can do anything.
Yeah, hats off to her. And hats off to you, Ellie. Well done. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Ellie. Appreciate it. Just after 7:30, still to come. Paula London, Chris Akabusi, they're going to talk you through the biggest stories of the day, the stories that are making the news, the stories that have got them talking after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in Murray. The A96 remains closed in both directions between Keith and the A98 at the Fochabers East roundabout. They've had it closed across the weekend for road works. It was supposed to reopen at 6:30, but it looks like that work has overrun and the road remains closed. In Lincolnshire, the A158 is closed each way off the Gunby roundabout after an accident. Other approaches to the roundabout are also closed. On the M4 in Berkshire, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed eastbound where there's an accident just before junction 5 at Langley, with queues from junction 6 at Slough. And on the M25 in Kent, the inside lane is closed each way for emergency repairs partway along the stretch between junction 5 for the M26 and the Clackett Lane services. There are clockwise queues from junction 4 at Orpington and long delays on the M26 towards the M25. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
We are going through the newspapers this morning and having a look at what is making the headlines. The Guardian leading with the Home Office's Rwanda plan as deportation preparations are underway from today.
The Mail says tens of thousands of foreign nationals are exploring short-term visas to stay in the UK.
Here's the Mirror. It leads with Rishi Sunak facing fresh demands to call a general election.
Telegraph, the government accusing the EU of double standards after the Irish row, after Ireland vowed to send asylum seekers to the UK if they cross over from Northern Ireland.
And The Times is leading with the threat to benefits, which we've been covering throughout the programme this morning.
OK, we've got Chris Akabusi and we have got Paula London. Very nice to see you both. Paula, I want to start with postal deliveries. It may be the end of six-day post.
I think it's a good idea. Many years ago, we needed post so much. We needed six-day post. Now people have Amazon, people use emails. Not everything is tangible now for communication.
Paula, not only did you have six-day post, you had 2 deliveries a day.
Yeah. Oh, that's before my time. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Really?
You had one in the morning, then you had one at lunchtime.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I know my local postwoman. She's really lovely, so it's quite nice, a community feel. But we don't need that. She never carries so much post. I remember years ago they had a huge bag. Now,
They have a huge van.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way
it's just not necessary. Things have moved on and changed.
It has moved on, but, you know, I sometimes feel sad that we've all switched to Amazon rather than Royal Mail, and we'll miss it if it goes, you know, at some point. It feels like it's heading that way,
it's cheaper and more reliable, quicker, to be honest with you. I can order something on Amazon and I get it that day. It's unbelievable.
Chris, Raggy Omar wasn't well before he fell ill on air. This is the presenter on ITV who did the 10 o'clock news over the weekend and appeared to be getting significantly worse as the bulletin continued. It's in the Mail today, and ITV is getting a bit of flack for this.
Yeah, in a way, I feel sorry for... Not feel sorry is the wrong word, that's too much. But, look, so what you have here is you've got a TV presenter who decided the show must go on. And the majority of us will know that sort of experience where you're not top of your game, but you crack on. Now, the challenge here was it appeared that he was having stroke-like symptoms.
Yes.
You know, his face was like getting droopy, he was slow in his words, you could see he was determined. And so the challenge is that ITV had a duty of care to get him off air and get him to the hospital ASAP. He's come out and said he was feeling wobbly the night before, and at the time I was determined to finish presenting the programme. I'm grateful for all the support that I've been given. So now I don't know whether he feels he's got to say that, or actually that's literally, look, I cracked on. I didn't realise how bad I was, but I was glad I was allowed to crack on. Now,
their problem would have been they would have had nobody to substitute for him.
Yeah, but you know what? You get anybody in. Look,
but they literally would have been a security guard or producer or whatever. They wouldn't have had another presenter on standby.
No. So yes, but if he, I mean, God forbid, but if there was a challenge here with you, somebody would come in.
But somebody might ask you
to what?
To present.
No, but no, that's wrong. We don't want that. You don't want that Kabuzi going on. You don't want that Kabuzi doing the aim of the homes. But no, look, I think my point was, I get the idea. You know, you're a sportsman. You know, you crack on. You see, when you see Olympics this year, there'll be very few people who will compete at the Olympics 100%. Now, I know it's different because he had symptoms that were looking very serious. Yeah. He seems to be OK right here, right now. But the point I was trying to make is the majority of us, from a certain generation, if you're a baby boomer generation, you crack on.
Yeah.
There is nothing as bad, though, as being ill or feeling ill on air, especially if you think you're going to faint.
Be sick or be sick.
Be sick.
I've had that dilemma when I thought, I'm going to be sick and I don't know where to be sick because there's lots of cameras pointing at me. It's actually terrifying just thinking you're going to sneeze.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I can feel a sneeze coming, what am I going to do? And then am I going to do that thing where I hold it in and then I go... or do I carry on? Yes, I mean, it happens. So, you know, it's not always as easy as everybody thinks, being a news anchor, but we wish Raggy well, of course, and hope he's OK.
Assisted dying, Paula, is making the front page of many of the papers today. We're going to be discussing it in about 30 minutes' time here on the programme as well. Dame Esther Ranson, front page of the Daily Express. I'm fighting for my family and a lot of others in this.
I believe in being very transparent. I mean, 6 years ago, I lost my late father to motor in the road, and I was very, very depressed. And I'm not going to lie, if someone said to me, you can have assisted dying, I would have said yes. And I'm in a complete different place now. And for anyone at home that's going through depression, you know, things do get better. And my dad would be very proud from heaven watching me today. So, I mean, it should be sad, but... So, for me, no, because depression can get so much better. You can go from there to there. So, definitely not.
So, what did you say in your son while your father was ill? You would have said, pull the plug.
My father died of motor neurone. I was his carer, and then he was in hospital for years. He was in intensive care for a year and a half, and then a neurological hospital. And then when he passed, I wasn't told. When I got there, he'd already passed. And for a long time, I didn't want to live because I missed my father so much. And then I just concentrated on work and doing a job that he loved.
So you're applying this to yourself, you're not talking about your father?
Yeah, so I'm saying no for assisted dying, because myself, I would have said yes and I wouldn't be here today. But if you're terminally ill, and especially if you're in pain, I can understand. But too many people, we've been talking about earlier, have mental health problems in this country.
We're seeing this
they would say yes.
Studies, aren't we, as well, from continental Europe, where people are fit and healthy physically, but saying they want to take this path.
People have died, in Canada especially. Yeah. We don't want to see thousands of people dying because they're depressed. Things can get better.
Yeah, I feel probably on the same end of the spectrum as you on this, Paula. I can see and have huge empathy.
The bravery to press the button, as far as I'm concerned. I have no trouble with it at all.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is being there. You know, we're in a generation where we're all getting older. And, for example, there's something called locked-in syndrome.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah, imagine if you was in a...
aware of everything and not being able to communicate.
Yeah, exactly. You can't move, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
So you're sort of atrophied inside. And I don't know what joys there are in life when you're at that stage.
You should have the option.
But yeah.
I think you should be able to sign something and say, count me out, pull the plug.
But you're never going to get better, but depression obviously is different.
Yeah, but also, you know, the thing that scares me is how are you sure that that person isn't being coerced into signing
Yes.
up?
Who cares?
Or feeling...
Who cares? My whole point is I don't want Paul of London making a decision on my behalf saying, no, don't touch him and he'll be fine, leave him alone.
No, you're missing my point. If somebody's saying that they are being pressured into signing that they want to die by, say, somebody who wants their inheritance, or that burden on older people because older people already feel like society doesn't want them. I think there's a danger of playing God. It doesn't mean I don't have huge sympathy and empathy for the likes of Esther Rantzen. I totally see both sides, but it's not for me.
So I had an experience with my father who'd come across from Nigeria, and God, how expensive it is when somebody's not in the NHS and you're paying for it. 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months. I mean, you know, even like a little piece of wrapping, 30 quid. And of course, so this is awful, because I didn't really know my dad. But you're thinking, this is... So in that scenario, it will be easy to say, oh, man, it's time to go. Now, he didn't last too long. But when you've got that sort of dilemma, you can understand that ethically you could go the wrong way.
Well, it happened in Canada. A man said that he was depressed, and I don't know how many doctors agreed, and then his family were furious afterwards. They didn't even know, and they were like, he wasn't even that depressed, and he had assisted dying.
I don't know why everybody makes it a problem when it shouldn't be a problem. Do you want to die? Yeah, thanks, bye. We're going to clear the break. We're going to be back right after this.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections.
We'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis. And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Rishi Sunak has come out fighting and declared war on what he's called the UK's sick note culture. The country's welfare state bill costs the average taxpayer now £2,000 every single year for every British taxpayer. Astonishing numbers, Catherine, simply mind-bending. 69 billion quid every year now goes on benefits. I paid my tax bill last month. Where did your tax go? I clicked on it. Long-term sickness and benefits is now second only to the NHS on what we spend our tax pound on. This is simply unsustainable.
That's exactly what the Prime Minister said. 69 billion a year on long-term sick and disability benefits, projected to rise to 90 billion by the end of the next Parliament if nothing has done. As he said, it is totally, totally unsustainable. And the message from Rishi Sunak really is, tough love. You're going to take your medicine. It's going to be good for you. You may not like it. Let's have a look at what he had to say earlier.
Everyone with the potential should be supported. And not just to earn, but to contribute and belong. And we must never tolerate barriers that hold people back from making their contribution and from sharing in that sense of self-worth that comes from feeling part of being something bigger than ourselves. And that is why this is a moral mission, and why the value of work is so central to my vision for welfare reform.
Certainly, Rishi Sunak said in the speech, in the period since the pandemic, something has gone wrong. Of course, millions of people had their wages paid by furlough. Now, that was an entirely artificial situation in an exceptional circumstance, but quite a lot of people left the workplace and simply haven't come back.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
all going to be bored silly next week as Prince Harry returns to London. We are. You know, he's going to be in the news every day, what he's doing.
Did he see the king? Didn't he see the
his
king?
father?
Was he
Who
snubbed by
cares?
his brother?
Anyway, he's back next week for the Invictus Games. What would he be without the Invictus Games, Chris?
Well, so really, I wanted to have a positive spin on this. So, you know, I think we should celebrate. It's 10 years of the Invictus Games where people who've had all sorts of life-changing injuries have competed at the highest level, and he is such a strong advocate, and right at the very, very beginning, it wouldn't be what it is today without his profile, his energy, his experience as a soldier. And when I think of how we've battered him, when I say we, the talking media battered him over the last couple of years, rightly or wrongly. I don't join in.
They're not battering him over the Invictus Game.
No, I know. So when this Invictus Games come, can we just focus on him and the Invictus Games and the Why no?
Well, I'm just saying it won't happen, but I mean...
No, yeah, correct.
You won't want that to happen anyway.
I probably think he would. I think he's tired of all...
Yeah, look, you know, he's gone to California, Montecito with his wife, and him and his wife decided to go and live a different life. We don't need to talk about him. And of course he's going to talk... Is he going to speak to his dad? Of course he's going to speak to his dad. He doesn't need a press conference. Hi, guys, I'm speaking to my dad. Did I speak to my brother? None of your business. It's none of your business. Of course, you know, I've had a little something with my brother. Sorry, bruv, how are you?
Well, it's only because he's talked about it in Spare.
Yeah, exactly, okay.
All about
so
it.
He did.
That it is our business, and everyone takes
well, it's not our business anymore.
Well, yeah, but everyone
Oprah
takes a view because the Oprah interview, he's taken slingshots at Kate. We know Kate's ill. People feel protective over William and Kate, don't they?
But I'm
That's
sure...
why people are invested in it. But, you know, I agree. It would be nice if we didn't talk about it.
I'm sure that he has spoken... I'm sure he's spoken to his brother or his sister-in-law and said, sweetheart...
I don't think he'd say that.
We might have sent a text or something.
Do you think he's going to call Kate and go, hi, sweetheart?
No, okay, I can see. But what I mean is, he's giving his condolences to his sister-in-law. Come on, he's not a beast. But anyway, whatever he is, let's not talk about that next week. It's the Invictus Games. 10 years. He's the flagship of all those brave soldiers who got maimed in different places and are competing at the highest level. Check him out.
Well said, Chris. Well said. Paula, Thames Water, we're a lot of stories in the papers today. If a financial collapse may be looming, and if it does, who's going to rescue them?
It looks like the government is going to have to rescue, but the investors don't want to put any more money in. They were going to put in another 500 million, but they haven't taken dividends for years now. One thing, though, I mean, my water bill hasn't gone up. Obviously, my energy bills have gone up hugely, but I don't understand what is going on. They've got a problem with their union, not the union, the regulator. So that seems to be the issue. But if the government has to step in, they will. They find the money.
Yeah, but then what happens when the next one goes down and the next one and the next one? And, you know, if this does trigger a kind of Liz Truss-style economic crisis, what does that mean for all of us in terms of our mortgages and interest rates and borrowing? It is a worrying picture, and the fact that this has been able to get to this crisis point is disgraceful, and I certainly think that there should be some sort of legal action taken against these fat cats at the top of these water
They haven't taken dividends,
I think there should be legal action taken against the Conservative government who sold it off in the first place, because it obviously was an impossible remit. They were sold off at far too good a deal for the utility companies, like the train companies as well. I mean, what they did to British Rail, the way they carved it up, just means we've got a rail system that doesn't work and will never work.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, you know, when you go to business school, when I had 3 years of business school, shareholder value, the only reason a business exists is for shareholder value. I was amazed when I heard that mantra, shareholder value. Now, the shares of our water company, not UK people, they're in China, they're in all sorts of people.
Yeah.
So they run their business. If it means sewage gets a better profit for the shareholder, that's what they're going to do. So you're right, the focus is not on... I thought business was run for the community, business is run for the customer, business is run for the employee. No, it's shareholder value, and that's what we're seeing here. And now what we had in 2008, the global financial crisis, we chucked billions at a global financial crisis because the banks couldn't fail. I wonder if that's the same here with the water. The water companies cannot fail.
But looks as though they may. They will. Dogs. Now, Chris, you've had a few dogs in your time.
Yeah.
It says here, feeding dogs raw meat could leave owners at risk of drug-resistant superbugs in their animals.
Like E. coli and stuff. When you handle the meat and stuff and it's on your fingers, and then you go back to your kitchen, you should wash your hands, obviously. Then you go back to the kitchen, you get E. coli in your chicken or your fish, whatever it is. But the animals absolutely love. I had 3 beautiful dogs, Doberman, Wattie and a field Labrador. And gosh, when you're feeding them, you get the offal, bones, and you mix it all up with kibble, and then you see your guys get stuck into that bowl and their eyes are all over the place.
I kiss my dog.
You kiss your dog?
Well, not proper kiss, but I kiss her on the nose. If she was eating all that offal stuff, I wouldn't do that.
No. Oh, what do you feed your dog?
Well, once a week I give her salmon, because I call it the Live and Forever diet, smoked salmon, but I give her, like, chicken breasts and things like that.
Smoked salmon?
Once a week, because she's 16, so, you know...
How old is she? No, what is she? What is she?
The Chihuahua miniature pinscher.
Oh, OK.
But it's good for her. I call it, like, brain food.
That's your handbag. That sits in your handbag. I'm talking about big dogs.
Oh, yeah, but I wouldn't eat offal myself. I wouldn't be able to prepare it, like hearts and livers.
How old did your dogs live to? Big dogs?
Yeah. But so two of them 14. Well, that was good. Yeah, one of them died early. Zen died early. He was only 8, had bone cancer.
Okay.
Oh, shame.
My friend, got to leave it on that happy note. Chris and Paula, back in 40 minutes' time. Here's your weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK during the week ahead, all of us seeing some rain at times, but temperatures will also be on the rise. Back to the detail for today now, and we've got an east-west split weather-wise across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving in across many western spots from the south, turning heavy at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk breeze too. That rain reaching Scotland as we head into the afternoon. So it's the east and southeast that's set to hold on to the best of the conditions. Certainly the southeast of England seeing plenty of sunshine, and in the sunshine it should feel fairly pleasant out and about, with fairly gentle winds towards the southeast too. Temperatures peaking at 16 or 17 degrees, nearer 12 to 14 towards the northwest. As we head into the evening and during the overnight period, further outbreaks of rain will move in across many northern and western parts of the UK, moving up there from the south and again turning quite heavy in nature at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk southerly wind. So it's always the southeast holding on to the clearest skies, but wherever you are, it will be a frost-free night, certainly much milder than in recent nights, lows in the range 7 to 10 Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, the east-west split continues with further pulses of rain moving up across many western spots as we go through the day. Again, the outbreaks of rain turning heavy at times and still quite breezy out across western areas, whereas further east, plenty of fine weather around, lots of sunshine, but notice 1 or 2 showers developing across the southeast as we head into the afternoon. Temperatures are still on the climb, though, up to 18 Celsius towards the southeast, so still pretty warm for the time of year, near 17 degrees at best in the north.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Murray, the A96 is closed in both directions at Keith, where roadworks across the weekend have overrun. In Lincolnshire, the A158 and other approaches to the Cumbie roundabout are closed after an accident. The M40 in Buckinghamshire is partly blocked southbound between junctions 2 and 1A from Beaconsfield to the M25, causing queues. On the M4 in Berkshire, the outside lane is closed eastbound just before junction 5 at Langley after an accident. There are queues from junction 6 at Slough. On the M25 in Essex, there are 2 lanes closed anti-clockwise just before junction 29 for the A127, where a car's broken down, causing queues. And on the M25 in Kent, the inside lanes closed each way for emergency repairs off junction 5 for the M26. There are queues from junction 4 at Orpington. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God, are you joking?
You're joking. Really? Seriously, it's not a wine. What is it?
Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
The next winning call could be answered by you. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Hello there, 8 o'clock is the time. You're very welcome to breakfast here on GB News. Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Yeah, thank you for your company this morning. Here's what's leading the programme. Tensions are growing between the UK and Ireland as Number 10 attacks EU double standards and refuses to take back asylum seekers until France does the same.
Border Force officials claim Channel migrants are using children as human shields. This is a GB News exclusive.
Well, officials are deeply angered and deeply concerned about this new development and say they're very worried as well about a rapidly intensifying level of violence against the French police.
A clampdown on disability benefits, millions facing the biggest welfare reforms in a generation. Many of you set to lose cash payments. The Work and Pensions Secretary Mel Stride had this to say.
That benefit, along with others, actually, in terms of costs, have been spiralling ever upwards, and we know that over the next 5 years, currently, PIP is due to be costing an additional £13 billion per year.
In royal news, King Charles is to return to public life as he prepares to meet cancer patients following his own diagnosis.
And campaigners and celebrities set to gather outside Westminster today ahead of a Commons debate on assisted dying. We're debating at 8:20.
Good morning. We'll see an east-west split in the weather across the UK today. Outbreaks of rain mainly reserved for western spots. The brightest skies always further east, but I'll have all the details later on.
The Border Force situation has getting a lot of you talking. This is to do with Ireland having a disagreement with the UK. They're basically saying if people in Northern Ireland are frightened about being sent to Rwanda, they are crossing into the Republic of Ireland, and if that is the case, ERA will send those people back up north. UK disputed all of this. Mark White will fill you in. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Yes, there is the British-Irish Intergovernmental Conference, which is taking place in London, which will, of course, be talking about this particular issue because there's a great deal of concern from Dublin. They say that because of Rwanda, primarily, that's their belief anyway, 80% of the migrants coming into the Republic of Ireland, they say, have come from the UK. They want a returns agreement. They want to return those coming over that border back into the UK. However, the High Court in Ireland has said that would be unlawful to do so because the UK, according to this court, is not a safe country to return these people to because of the potential of them then being sent on to Rwanda. And there are claims of hypocrisy being levelled against the government in Dublin as well, given that, of course, for many years, migrants who've come into Ireland via open borders in Europe have then moved up into the UK and, of course, across on ferries to the UK mainland as well. And also they say that, you know, a returns agreement from Ireland might be able to happen as long as we are able to return the many thousands coming across the English Channel back to France. Well, this comes against the backdrop, of course, of 900 migrants who've come in less than a week as the numbers continue to pile up in 2024. Well, I've been given an exclusive look around the Border Force Operational Command in Dover Harbour, where they've spoken of the increasing levels of violence and the fact that migrants are even using their children as human shields against French police, trying to get to their boats to puncture them. This is a rare look inside the small boat's operational command at Dover Harbour. As we filmed, the Border Force vessel Defender was alongside, offloading another 66 Channel migrants, the latest of more than 7,000 who've arrived here so far this year. And this, their mode of transport, large but extremely flimsy inflatable rafts, made for the criminal gangs in backstreet factories.
I mean, these aren't seaworthy for anything because they are just not made to any standard.
Trevor Taylor has seen increasing numbers packed into these vessels. 70 or 80 migrants on each boat is now common.
It's just not safe. The way it's constructed, I mean, this is typical where if there was a cut or a puncture in one part of this boat, the whole thing would go down.
Makeshift puncture repair kits and cheap pumps are often all the migrants have as they battle to stay afloat. And there are very few, if any, effective life jackets.
Just show you an example of that. And that's probably not just for a child, they'll probably give that to an adult as well, saying that's going to save you. Another example, just back here, is an inner tube. We quite often see them, or they're handed out in a packet. So basically, if you panic, inflate one of those yourself.
And the engines too are completely unsuitable for the English Channel, lacking power and prone to breaking down.
You look at the engine, you might think, yeah, that's a proper engine, something you might expect. However, the organised crime groups, they put stickers like this on there, see 30, trying to trick you into thinking, 30 horsepower. In reality, it's somewhere between 10 and 15, so really not suitable to go on the boat itself, especially at sea.
The surge in violence along the French coast is of huge concern to authorities on both sides of the Channel. Staff in Dover have seen increasing numbers of migrants arriving with injuries, including stab wounds.
The violence that is now shown to our French colleagues, trying to prevent the launches, trying to save these people from putting their lives at risk, is huge. We've seen them attacked with sticks, metal bars, machetes, using women and children that are there to cross, using them as human shields to prevent law enforcement taking action, and it's growing, it's getting worse.
This quayside here at Dover Harbour is where the Channel migrants first set foot on British soil. Of course, if Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan comes to full fruition, then they won't be here for long. Many of them will be on a flight to East Africa. But those flights are likely still months away, and as weather conditions improve in the weeks ahead, many more of these flimsy migrant boats will arrive in UK waters, unseaworthy and dangerously overloaded. Mark White, GB News, at the Small Boats Operational Command in Dover.
Well, that Rwanda plan, other repercussions coming from that. Let's go to political commentator Eamonn Malley, who joins us live from Belfast this morning. Eamonn, so we're hearing that there is a possible conflict if you are a migrant, I presume an illegal migrant in Northern Ireland, and you cross into the Republic of Ireland, they're saying, whoa, no way, Jose.
Well, I think this was inevitable, Eamonn, because that was the whole implication of the situation here, where you have land borders with Europe. And these people will do anything to get into settled communities who are coming across in small boats. Effectively, according to the Irish statistics, 80% of recently arrived people in the Republic of Ireland have come in via Northern Ireland. That loophole was always there. Now, the Irish government, they're a bit of a dilemma here, because it's a country which was received for years, for generations across the world, when during famine and all the rest on the island of Ireland, they've already got a huge Ukraine consignment of people in the Republic of Ireland. There's already a huge housing problem in the Republic of Ireland. Now, the economy is very, very strong, with something like 8 billion surplus. But the bottom line is they cannot build accommodation for people quickly enough. It's just not physically possible to build enough houses. And with the arrival of thousands more of people coming in via Northern Ireland, the dilemma in the Republic of Ireland is amplified. So the Irish cabinet is now going to examine, is there a way of returning these people to Britain? Now, Britain is arguing, of course, unless France sorts themselves out, there's no real solution to this. The cancelling of this meeting between the Justice Minister of the Irish Republic and Mr. Cleverly, the British Justice Minister, looks pretty clumsy. And the excuse of Mr. Cleverly to say, oh, a clash of diaries, that's a classic old excuse, I think.
And this suggestion that they might draw up some emergency legislation, it's pretty en vogue, this move, isn't it? That if you don't like the way things are going, create some new rules, perhaps ignore some of the treaties that are there. What might be an implication from that?
Well, I don't even think the Irish government have worked that out. There's a cabinet meeting going to take place, and they're going to discuss whether they can do anything about the loophole being used for these people coming into the Republic of Ireland. But I come back to the point that literally thousands and thousands of people left this island during famine and many, many other problems in search of accommodation and escape down the years. And for Ireland to be seen so publicly engaging in shipping these people wholesale back into Britain, it's a difficult one, and I'm not sure there's going to be an easy solution to it. Now, obviously, it was a rather clumsy comment by the British to say that the Rwanda policy is already starting because of the number of people who are going elsewhere. I think that was an error of judgment. Now, these loopholes, according to Simon Harris, the Taoiseach, the Irish Prime Minister, will not be tolerated. And if the Irish government can undo those loopholes, they have their own migrant problems, and they're going to try and deal with those. But they don't want more and more tents across the cities of the island of Ireland.
Well, indeed, they do have their own migrant problems, Eamonn. I know you were talking historically and the potato famine and emigration historically from Ireland, but that's not the situation we're in today. Louise says, I live in Dublin, but any time I go into the city centre, you see homeless people. Many are asylum seekers. Many are not meant to be there. They're illegal, and the Irish government is delusional. They think they can relate to all refugees more than anyone else, and it winds everyone up. Christopher says the Taoiseach of Ireland was on about taking illegals as he's all for the EU. Now he wants to take them back, but it's tough luck that they're in the EU, so they support mass migration. The people of Ireland are finally waking up. But just reflect to us, Eamonn, if you can, the social disturbances that there have been, and why has there been a backlash against migrants in Ireland, which historically has been so tolerant of them?
Yeah, well, the bottom line is this, Eamonn, that you have small towns dotted around the Republic of Ireland, and a local hotel is suddenly allocated to 70, 80, 90 people. Now, that changes the whole composition, the whole structures in many ways of those areas. And people certainly feel very threatened, rightly or wrongly, but they certainly feel discombobulated. And arising from that, you're getting very, very considerable protests on the streets, some of which become quite aggressive. And it's unseemly, all of this, particularly against the background of so many people leaving the shores of Ireland, seeking accommodation in England and in America elsewhere. But some of these demonstrations are past the point of being pacifist. are being quiet, they are very, very disturbing. And, there are even suggestions that people are being moved on. To where do they go? That's the dilemma for everybody. It's a common problem now in Europe. It's a problem in Britain. There's no easy solution to this. The world is upside down at the moment, Eamonn, as we know.
The world's on the move. Eamonn Malik, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thanks, Eamonn.
Good morning, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. Reports claim Humza Yousaf is preparing to quit as Scotland's First Minister. He decided his leadership's no longer justifiable, we hear. Ministers have been told the SNP leader decided over the weekend that there's no way for him to survive votes of confidence coming his way this week. So we'll stay across that this morning. We'll bring you any updates as we get them.
Worries are growing for the financial collapse of Thames Water, with fears it could trigger eye-watering borrowing not seen since the chaos of the Liz Truss mini-budget. Officials are hoping Thames Water could be renationalised before the general election to avoid a total collapse.
A British tourist has been seriously injured in a shark attack off a Caribbean island. It happened on Friday. He says he is aware of what is happening and he can't communicate, but he is still in intensive care. His name is Peter Smith. He was attacked in Courland Bay, north coast of Tobago, on Friday.
Now, the government is set to overhaul disability benefits, with millions facing the biggest welfare reform in a generation.
Well, those who suffer from depression, from anxiety, could lose money in cash handouts in favour of talking therapies and social care packages.
And lots of you have been getting in touch via your Say part of our website on this. Adrian having his say, I don't believe in assisted dying. My wife had stomach cancer and regularly would say, I don't want to die, but she thought this is on assisted dying. So it says benefits on my list there. We'll come back to those views, shall we, a little bit later on. Catherine Forster, you've got the latest on this. This is a bold move from the government. It will ruffle feathers, but it could also save a huge amount of money when it comes to the taxpayer, and also puts a bit of clear water between Labour and the Conservatives.
Yes, it does. This is a nettle that for a long time the government didn't really want to grasp, but they are grasping it at last. Principally because the welfare budget is frankly out of control. Currently, £69 billion a year in long-term sickness and disability. That's going to rocket to £90 billion by the end of the decade if nothing is done. So it's simply unsustainable. And what Mel Stride, the Work and Pensions Secretary, has been saying is that things like low-level depression and anxiety, as you mentioned before, Isabel, the ordinary difficulties of life, perhaps these people suffering from those shouldn't be getting benefits, but rather should be getting assistance like talking therapies and other support so that they can get back into work and contributing to the economy.
And what have Labour had to say about it all?
Very little, and I think this is partly, we're only a few days off local elections. It's very useful for the Conservatives. By appearing to be tough on welfare, they're putting in another clear dividing line with Labour. The Labour Party haven't said what they would do about this, although they have acknowledged that the current cost is too high. So it will be interesting to see. But this, the Rwanda plan, and then, of course, Rishi Sunak's big announcement on defence spending, all three big dividing lines with Labour. For a long time, a lot of people were criticising, saying there's nothing to pick between Labour and the Conservatives. That is increasingly not the case.
Well, let's take a listen to what the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions told us on this programme a little bit earlier. Mel Stride was telling us what the overhaul will mean.
Is it properly targeting those who need the help most? One of the concerns I have, for example, are those with progressive, lifelong conditions where currently we know, sadly, people will not be getting better through time, and yet they're having to go through reassessments, jump through bureaucratic hoops and so on, and I want to really look at whether that's appropriate and we can't do things better. I want to look at best practice internationally, and I want to look at the nature of the support that's actually provided. Should it be cash benefits, or should we also be looking, for example, at healthcare support for those, particularly those that are on PIP through reasons of mental health conditions?
People getting in touch this morning, Catherine, and saying, look, there's already a huge waiting list for me to get any therapy, mental health crisis. We saw Dan Poulter quitting from the Conservatives, defecting. He's a psychiatrist in the NHS, obviously at the forefront of dealing with the mental health crisis in this country. Is it realistic to say we're going to get people off benefits and into therapy if people are already waiting for huge periods of time?
I think that's a really valid question. And, of course, the NHS waiting list, the millions of people that are on those waiting for treatment, that's one of the reasons that so many people are on these sickness benefits, and mental health services particularly, I think just under 2 million people. So it's very easy to say we're going to give you talking therapies instead, but that is clearly not happening anything like enough at the moment. So we will see. But yeah, as you mentioned, Dan Poulter, a big blow for Rishi Sunak at the weekend, an NHS doctor and an MP who's gone over to Labour. He's going to be out and about with Sir Keir Starmer this morning, talking about welfare, talking about the NHS. So let's see what they have to say a bit later.
We will indeed, Catherine. Thank you for now.
Let's have a wee look at the weather situation and see what way it's shaping up for the week ahead.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK during the week ahead, all of us seeing some rain at times, but temperatures will also be on the rise. Back to the detail for today now, and we've got an east-west split weather-wise across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving in across many western spots from the south, turning heavy at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk breeze too. That rain reaching Scotland as we head into the afternoon. So it's the east and southeast that's set to hold on to the best of the conditions. Certainly the southeast of England seeing plenty of sunshine, and in the sunshine it should feel fairly pleasant out and about, with fairly gentle winds towards the southeast too. Temperatures peaking at 16 or 17 degrees, nearer 12 to 14 towards the northwest. As we head into the evening and during the overnight period, further outbreaks of rain will move in across many northern and western parts of the UK, moving up there from the south and again turning quite heavy in nature at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk southerly wind. So it's always the southeast holding on to the clearest skies, but wherever you are, it will be a frost-free night, certainly much milder than in recent nights, lows in the range 7 to 10 Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, the east-west split continues with further pulses of rain moving up across many western spots as we go through the day. Again, the outbreaks of rain turning heavy at times and still quite breezy out across western areas, whereas further east, plenty of fine weather around, lots of sunshine, but notice 1 or 2 showers developing across the southeast as we head into the afternoon. Temperatures are still on the climb, though, up to 18 Celsius towards the southeast, so still pretty warm for the time of year, near 17 degrees at best in the north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for us to give away the Great British Giveaway, the latest one, and it's a biggie.
Yes, £20,000 in cash up for grabs, all tax-free. Here's how you can get your hands on it.
We've blown the budget by giving you the chance to win a totally terrific £20,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer spectacular. You could use that cash to splash out on a holiday, make the garden glam, buy a new car, or just save it for a rainy day. Whatever you'd spend £20,000 on, make sure you don't miss the chance to make it yours. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Indeed, yes. Still to come. We're talking about assisted dying. Big protest outside Parliament today. Legalise assisted dying. What do you say about it? Have your say. We've got a rabbi and a priest having their say right after this.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's a remarkable story, isn't it?
Amazing.
Extraordinary. And also, she was unflappable. Apparently, the Princess Royal
She's
just
brilliant.
refused to get out of the car and said, I'm not going anywhere. Extraordinary. Well, Jim Beaton was awarded the George Cross for protecting the Princess, and delighted to say joins us now, along with the former head of Royalty Protection, Di Davis. Jim, you won't remember, but I met you some time ago at the Imperial War Museum when Princess Anne was opening an exhibition to do with the George Cross, and you were there reunited with her. And you told me then what great admiration you had for the Princess, cool under fire, but you didn't do so badly yourself.
It was probably my job, and also I had a wee bit of police training, not very much, but a little bit, whereas Princess Anne had nothing, and yet the way she displayed it, you would have thought she'd been highly trained to deal with any type of that situation.
Even though you'd had some training, you took 3 bullets for the Princess. You effectively stood between her and a deranged gunman.
Well, I was supposed to be a protection officer, really, so I just tried to fuddle about. You must remember that back in 1974, there was no communication, and we were extremely lucky that Michael Hills, who was outside Clarence House and nearby, had got one of the fast police radios, or radios on his shoulder, so he was able to send a message out. Otherwise, we would have just been relying on the good old public to phone in and say there was something happening.
Yeah.
So times have changed drastically.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
this is GB News.
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Right, we're talking about assisted dying now. You'll have seen Dame Esther Ranson talking about this. She's become a bit of a sort of, I don't want to say poster girl for it, but she's been very brave in speaking out about it. And there's been a petition to legalise it by more than 200,000 people. So today, MPs are going to debate whether or not it is time to give people the choice to legally take their own lives here in the UK.
OK, it's just the choice. So is it time we did legalise assisted dying? Dr Jonathan Romain is a rabbi and chair of Dignity in Dying. And there is a Catholic priest, Father David Palmer, who, well, I think it's fair to say, Father Palmer, that you think there's no place for euthanasia in British law, am I right?
You're right indeed, yes.
Yeah. And why is that, Father?
Well, I mean, there's various practical reasons, but I think there's an underlying philosophical reason as well. If you go back to ancient Rome, for example, the pater familias, the head of the household, the father, had absolute power of life and death over his wife, his children, his slaves. They didn't have any rights. But in our society now, that's changed. We believe that every human being is sacred, has dignity, and that we don't have the right to take life. And that's a fundamental understanding we've had as a society for over 1,000 years. And if you start shifting that understanding, well, who gets to decide? The government, the medics, popular opinion? I think it's a very dangerous slope to go down.
What about, Father, what about you yourself deciding when it comes to pain, when it comes to no dignity left? I mean, you don't have to have me go through everything, but, you know, it can be a really bad, awful, messy, painful business.
It can, and I just lost my mother 2 months ago, so I've recently been sitting at the bedside of someone that I love who's dying, and it's a very difficult situation. But I think this is one of those issues where the weight is so huge that individual cases don't always make good general principles, and I think that's one of those times. And we're not saying that there's not just a choice between dying with dignity, i.e. being killed, or miserable dying. You know, the leaps forward in terms of hospice care and pain management are improving all the time. And I would much rather see our energy go into improving that so that people don't die in great pain, but die peacefully.
Well, let's bring in Dr. Jonathan Romaine. We were talking about Dame Esther Ranson a little bit earlier, and she said that she's personally overseen the deaths of a number of beloved pets with more dignity and compassion than she believes humans are often afforded. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think a lot of your listeners would. And just to correct Father Palmer, this is not about somebody else killing you. This is not euthanasia. It's called assisted dying because it's only the person themselves who wishes to take their own life. In other words, it's not about ideology. This is about helping people, and particularly helping people in great pain who are suffering and who are terminally ill. We're not talking about somebody midlife. We're talking about somebody who's only got a few weeks to go, and they've got an unfortunate disease. It could be cancer, motor neuron, Parkinson's, whatever, and they are horribly suffering. Now, if they want to carry on till their last breath, great, and we should give them every support, hospital, hospice, palliative care, fully in favour of that. But for those people who say, it's awful, I'm dying, I don't want to stagger on for the last few weeks, I would like to let go, then assisted dying means that they can get a prescription from their chemist and they themselves take it. Nobody else, only they themselves. So it's not really about shortening life. It's about shortening death and shortening the pain of death. Yeah. And that's why it's so important for those people who so wish, whether it's Esther Ranson or anybody watching this programme right now.
Father, you are a consecrated priest, but you're also a human being as well. And you sat there with your poor mother, your recently departed mother. Would there ever have been any time that you would have weakened and thought, if things were really bad for her, I would wish her to go. I wish that somebody could press a button or she could take a pill?
Well, I mean, let's be honest about what actually happens in these situations. The church would talk about what we would call double effect. So it's about intentionality. We know that people are often given morphine or whatever towards the end of their life to lessen the pain, but can have that double effect, that side effect of actually hastening the inevitable. That's already the situation, but the point is the intention is not to take the life. The intention is to ease the pain. And intention is important. We recognise it in law, like manslaughter or murder. And I just think as a society, we don't want to get to a place where we say we can intentionally take a life.
Yeah. Dr. Romaine, my concern stems from the pressure that people might feel. The sort of burden syndrome, whether people think that, OK, they obviously may be suffering, but they also want to end their life because they feel their children have had enough, or, you know, there could be all these sorts of other reasons that could lead them down this path, and that concerns me. Is that a concern, do you think, the slippery slope argument that this could end up people taking their own lives who actually aren't wanting to die, it's other people around them wanting them to die?
No, and I'm saying that very definitely for two reasons. Firstly, because there's just been an 18-month parliamentary select committee, the Health and Social Care Select Committee, and they examined different countries around the world where they have assisted dying, and they came out very definitely as saying there does not seem to be a slippery slope. And what's more, I take quite a lot of inspiration from what's been happening in Oregon. Oregon introduced assisted dying 25 years ago. So it means we've got 25 years, a quarter of a century, experience, medical records, knowledge, and there has not been a slippery slope. And the percentage of deaths has been more or less the same for 25 years. A lot of people apply for assisted dying because they want to have the sort of emotional safety net of knowing that if things get really pear-shaped and they get absolutely agonising, then I can opt for it. But actually only a small number do. So it's really about helping that small number, the Esther Ransons of this world, the people who are dying in great pain and who want to let go. There's nothing sacred about suffering. There's nothing holy about agony. So if people want to say to God, thank you very much, it's been a great life, but I just want to slip away a few weeks early, why are we forcing them to stagger on against their will?
Do you think that will change, Doctor? Do you? Do you think we're close? I mean, protests like today, are we getting closer to the day where things will be the way you envisage them to be?
Yes, and really this is, although it's new for England, it's not new for the rest of the world. America, Europe, Australia, they've all got it. It's actually coming closer. There are bills being proposed at this very moment in the Isle of Man, in Jersey, in Ireland, in Scotland. We are one of the last. And we've got the comfort, if you like, of knowing that it does work elsewhere. And there's not been a single country in the world, not a single country in the world, where they've introduced assisted dying and then thought, oops, we made a mistake. It seems to be working. It's very good for those who so wish. It gives them the comfort of knowing that there is a way out. I mean, I've been to too many hospices and hospitals where the nurses work really hard, but people are dying in agony. Why are we forcing them to keep that agony when we could give them another option, only if they themselves choose?
Okay.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you both
you.
very much indeed. We'll leave it there. It's got people thinking and talking. Appreciate your contributions.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it is a topic people feel very strongly about. Louise Design has got in touch, said more money needs to be poured into hospices and improving end-of-life care. She worries that once you open up this legislation, it's the thin end of the wedge. Adrian's opposed to it. I don't believe in assisted dying. My wife had stomach cancer and regularly would say, I don't want to die. She fought and she got her life back. It's just another reason to give up. Whereas Sheila says, locked-in syndrome, it's where I'm headed with my MS. Others know my wishes. I'm all for euthanasia. Incredibly difficult topic. Let us know your thoughts this morning. gbnews.com/.
We'll get the news on that and much more from Paula London and Chris Ackerbussy right after the break.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Murray, the A96 is closed each way at Keith, where roadworks across the weekend have overrun. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, 2 lanes are closed clockwise after an accident between junctions 15 and 16 from the Swinton interchange to Pendlebury, with queues from junction 12 at the Eccles interchange. On the M56 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down between junctions 7 and 6 from Bowland to Hale, causing delays. In Lincolnshire, the A158 and other approaches to the Conby roundabout are closed after an accident. On the M11 in Essex, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 8 and 7A. From Bishop Stortford Stansted Airport turn towards Harlow. On the M25 in Essex, there's a lane closed clockwise at junction 30 for the A13 after an accident causing queues. And on the M25 in Kent, there's a lane closed each way for repairs near junction 5 for the M26 causing queues on the M25 and M26. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections.
We'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News. 2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, so here's the situation. It's the Olympic Games this summer, the Paris Olympics, and I've already looked and I thought, oh, we'll not be going to Paris. Everything will be priced through the roof. I'll not be bothered with that. And here's a story, Chris Agabusi and Paula London, which says a legal requirement means 15% service charge must be included in the prices on restaurant menus in relation to the Paris Olympics. Right, Paula, tell us where you stand on that.
Well, I've read the story, and what it looks like is that they're going to be wanting visitors to tip, but not French people, which seems kind of odd.
So you only charge this if you're not French?
Well, at the moment, what they're doing, French people are saying they're listening to people, waiters, give their bill to tourists, and then they have to either tip 15 or 20%, but they're not doing that to the French people. So it looks like this is going to continue throughout the Olympics when they've got, I guess, over 1 million people visiting. So it seems quite unfair from the story that I've read.
But I can't even work out the logic of it. I mean, if you're going to charge people, charge everybody.
Well,
yeah, but the French wouldn't stand for it. Yeah, they wouldn't stand for it. They're
not used to tipping the French. They don't really tip.
Oh, really?
They're not. I mean, I think 1 in 5 tip, but it's not standard like Americans. Obviously, Americans are used to tipping.
I remember going to America, taught Atlanta tipping, very first time with my athlete mates, going into a restaurant, leaving, because back then we didn't tip. You know, this is like a... And the waiter come chasing, hey, sir! Did we do anything wrong? No, nothing at all. We didn't tip. What do you mean didn't tip? You got tipped, so we had to go and get our money out. There's a whole bunch of athletes, poor athletes. Yeah. And so, so now I've learned that, you know, of course, you do tipping. But like you said, I'm quite surprised that if you go to Paris, that the local Parisians would not be tipping.
I'm not surprised.
Well, this is how it's reading, which is quite unfair, to say the least, yes.
Will it deter people from going, though? Probably not. I would love to go, but I haven't managed to get my hands on any tickets. So you'll probably get a better view watching it at home anyway.
But, I mean, you'd expect it to be a very pricey trip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You'd go, Chris?
Well, I'm not going.
No.
I was surprised. I asked him. I thought you'd be going.
No, I'll watch it.
I would if I could get some tickets. I used to run track the same...
Yes, Ash Lane. Edward Harriers. I was surprised.
I know.
We come from the same area. Yeah. I mean, I think about 30 years difference.
No,
we come from the same area.
Yeah. So, I was 100 metres. He's obviously not that good. He was obviously...
Well, I wasn't very good at that.
What was your time?
I mean, it was 12 point something.
That's great as a kid.
You know, 1 second's a long time for 100 metres.
Gives you big thighs. 100 metres.
I don't know. I've got too big
strong thighs, but not necessarily big.
Yeah, I don't have one behind.
What will you be looking out for in the Paris Olympics?
Well, there's a guy called Carsten Warholm for the 400 metre hurdles, which was the event that I did when I was a youngster. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he will do against the mighty Americans. He's totally revolutionised it. I mean, they now run 45 seconds for the 400 hurdles.
Wow, and what was your time?
I daren't say it in the same breath. I mean, I've still got the British record hold. I'm still British record holder. It's 47.82.
You say that as if you're ashamed, Darren, to say it in the same breath. 47 seconds is incredible.
Well, yeah, no, because now, what I realise now, we were jogging. See, it's all about mindset. So when we were running, you came out the blocks, round the turn, and you were told to sort of like just coast down the back straight, hit the second turn, fight for home.
Yeah.
But now, these guys are out of the hole. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at that, and of course, you know, humanity is amazing because it will give you the second burst anyway. We weren't aware of that back in my day. So I reckon I could have run half a second faster or so. But look at what these guys are doing. I mean, you know, you're coming third, running 46. Ed Moses, the great Ed Moses, 47.02 would be
but they're getting new spikes, new kit,
well done.
They're also getting all the psychology training.
Might be a good job that you're running because you won't be able to drive anywhere. Paula, we look at the Express and they're talking about a £14 billion pothole crisis.
It's really serious because so many people are in accidents because of these potholes, cyclists especially, motorists. Some of them have life-changing injuries because of potholes. And now what I've read, that some people in vicinities are clubbing together and fixing the potholes themselves because they're damaging cars as well. It's a real problem, potholes. It really is.
Yeah.
It's for safety reasons.
I mean, I've absolutely busted a couple of tyres on potholes. The challenge you've got, though, is if you, as a local resident, fix the pothole and then a cyclist falls down a pothole, they're coming for you.
Oh, really? That's awful of the cyclists to do that.
Well, no, but anybody. I mean, you've taken over from the council. If you put your hand in there, then let me come for you.
Well, sometimes you want a job doing, you have to do it yourself.
I don't know why we talk, Paula, about fixing the pothole crisis because it's unfixable. It will never be fixed. Nothing. Our roads will never be normal again. This deficit is just too much.
Never say never, though.
No, absolutely never. I will say never now. Your roads will never be what we would be used to in the 60s or 70s. Never.
Well, it depends how often the roads are being used. Like, say there's a...
Every road in the land has got potholes.
OK.
Because I spent my time looking at these every single day, getting depressed.
OK, but what if someone lives on a private road and there's 20 houses and there's potholes? They could just fix it and that's it, done.
It's a very pricey thing, though, as well, isn't it?
Well, if you live on a private road, they can probably afford it. But I think I don't have any potholes on my road. I just live in Marylebone.
You will get sued. You will get sued. So you'll soon sort yourself out when you get sued because you fixed it and then someone's damaged.
Isn't that terrible? People feel afraid to sort things for that reason.
Well, if your local association is going to come together and
I'd go at night and do it when no one's around to fix it.
Right, full speed ahead, handbrake turn as we hit the break and back right after this with more stories making the news.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Prince Harry, remember him? He appears to have fully turned his back on the UK as he listed his primary residence as the United States for the very first time in papers published yesterday. So interestingly, Harry listed the dates on the formal US residency forms as the 29th of June 2023, last year. So that was the very same day he was kicked out of Frogmore Cottage in Great Windsor Park by his dad, the King. Charlotte, thank you for joining me.
Okay.
Are we just putting two and two together here with the significance of this date? Because there were stories during the rounds today that Harry chose that date specifically because he was so hurt about being booted out of Frogmore by his dad.
Yeah, I mean, to me it feels like he's trolling his dad a bit because he could have said that he's been a US resident since 2020 when he quit the UK and moved to the States, but instead he chose the exact day that his dad kicked him out of Frogmore. But the reason his dad kicked him out of Frogmore was because he'd slagged off Camilla in Spare. And, you know, and his dad, apparently it was a really difficult decision for Charles because, of course, no dad wants to kick their son out of their home. But he went beyond the pale. So Charles took the difficult decision to say, look, Frogmore's been empty for years anyway. We've spent £2.4 million doing it up for you. And now you've, you know, insulted our family in your book, Spare. Why is he so hung up on Frogmore? Because this is the country he was desperate to get away from. This is a house he didn't particularly want to live in and, in fact, didn't live in.
Well, he was forced, by the way, to pay £2.5 million to fund the renovations after it all kicked off. I mean, would that have anything to do with...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that sort of galvanised his anger towards the whole situation. He thought he was getting a fantastic freebie. And there was, you know, there were a few reports at the time that Meghan actually thought she was moving into Frogmore House, which is a much grander property. And she sort of felt a bit sort of tricked or confused and hadn't quite realised it was actually a cottage, which is only a mere, I think it was only a mere 8 bedrooms.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Chris, there's a big story in the papers here today, and I don't know what everybody's upset or up in arms about it, and it is that almost half of patients hardly ever see the same GP. Do people really expect to see the same GP nowadays?
Well, I think if you're a certain vintage, indeed. So when I was a youngster, so late baby boomer, we had the same GP that came to our house.
Yes,
was home, right? And so he knew your history and intimately could support you. Whereas today, GP pooling, you go to see your GP, and it's a little bit confusing if you're a little bit elderly, because your first 3 or 4 minutes of your 7-minute consultation is reviewing what's been done before, what did they say about this, and you just lost confidence in your GP. So, I mean, I was very fortunate. The last issue I had, the GP that I had insisted on seeing me every second week. They work every second Friday. So I did see her. She was really, really good. But otherwise, my experience at pooling is atrocious. So I do get this. If you've experienced what we experienced in the 60s and 70s, only to be now really need your GP, and he or she doesn't understand who you come from Adam. Yeah,
but if it's the difference between an appointment or not, say your assigned GP is booked up, another GP is available, I'll see the other GP. I don't have an ongoing health complaint. When I have an individual problem, I don't mind who I see. I just want the meds or the advice. You know?
Yeah, so you're right. So if it's ad hoc, then you're right. You can go and see somebody because he or she is a professional. But if you've got an ongoing issue, you don't want to... So what happened first? What have you been taking? Oh, have you your blood pressure? You don't want all that stuff.
Hopefully they've done all of that before you come in.
No chance. You've got no time.
GP. Yeah, I think that more people should move GPs, because a lot of people will have a GP and then just keep the same GP for 50 years. I left an apartment in central London, moved, I'm now out of the area, but I kept my GP because not a lot of people live in this area, so it's not busy. So a lot of people struggle to get GP appointments. I can see a GP the same week, so if people are having problems, they should move and get a different GP, because people just think, oh, they just have to
You should move to get yourself a GP.
No,
sell your house.
GPs. No, change GPs. I'm not even in the catchment area.
It's not easy out there, Paula, for people to change doctors and get... Yeah, I think there's a big problem with...
Go on a waiting list and start with a new GP.
My GP is accepting people. You can Covent Garden if anyone.
I think that's probably quite a unique situation.
And I see the same person.
Practice accepts people, but the doctors, there are not enough doctors, there are not enough GPs, and they can't retain GPs to do that. But very nice that that's the service that...
Yeah, I'd like other people, you know, if they need a GP, you know, you can see the same person and get an appointment that week.
Fabulous.
OK.
Right, there's an asylum loophole, Paula, that you want to talk about. It's on the front of the Mail today, and this is about tens of thousands of foreign nationals entering the UK on visas are then lodging asylum claims to stay permanently.
We're just being laughed at around the world now. We need to stop paying, because taxpayers like us are paying for these claims because they're getting legal aid. And they didn't just get one chance. If they don't get their asylum granted, they have another go and another go and another go. Staggering stats today, 1 in every 140 people that arrive on a visa then go on to claim asylum. So basically, they're coming here legally, thinking, oh, I quite like it here, let me
Picking fruit or whatever.
The easiest way to stay is to claim asylum. And then people like me and you are paying for it. We're just being laughed at now. It's just really, really bad. Very bad.
No, I agree with you. I think we are being laughed at. I think the whole system is in such a mess. Too many loopholes. People can do absolutely...
Too many lawyers loving it.
Lawyers loving it. Yeah.
Chris, let's talk about heat wave. I mean, honestly, we have had so much rain.
Oh,
I feel like I don't remember the time before the rain. I don't know about you. It's just every time I step outside, and it's cold. I couldn't get the house warm yesterday, but... a heat wave is on the way.
Well, they're saying be really, really careful. So can you remember the first time we had lockdown? It was March.
Yeah.
And it was just stunning weather. And I remember being in my garden and, you know, sort of playing in my garden on my jack, and it was just absolutely amazing weather. we're into end of April now, and they're saying, OK, this cold April, chilly April's going out, and we can expect a heat wave of sorts, but don't expect it to be exceptional. I'm expecting it to be exceptional. I want an exceptional, I want blue skies. You know, I want long sunny days. I want balmy evenings. You know, as they're saying, it might get to 22, 23. No, I want 24, 28.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there. I heard a rumour, I think it was Jim Dale, who's a regular on this programme. He told us.
My God.
He says we're going to have a heat wave in May.
No, stop him. That was a guy.
So I don't believe what he says.
No, that was a guy. I was when we was in the green room, I was trying to remember a guy. It was Jim Dale. Jim Dale in March was predicting an amazing heat wave in April.
Yeah, he was.
And I
did tell every gardener I know.
April, I think.
And it was awful.
Well, it's on its way. He says now it's May. Yeah.
What a prophet he is.
Well, long-term forecasting. Come on now.
No, that's
makes me laugh, though. When I watch him, I do laugh.
Yeah, that was the one.
I could say, I mean, Chris said about blue skies. I think blue skies are amazing. I don't even care if it's warm, as long as there's blue skies.
I agree. A crisp winter's day with blue skies, gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I mean, the United Kingdom. So when I was a sportsman person, we'd go away in November and we'd come back here in April. And in April, the change in the topography and the geography was amazing to see Britain in bloom. Great big bodacious green hedgerow, beautiful flowers. I mean, the UK was phenomenal. Yeah. And now look at it.
If I could scooch out from November to April every year, that would be the dream. What do they call it in America? They're sunbirds, aren't they? They leave Canada in the cold months and head to Florida.
Well, a lot of people get depressed in the winter. Like, light boxes are really good at home.
But it's not just the light, it's the cold. And as you say, the bare trees.
Darkness
it's just so grey and darkness. Yeah, I do love spring and summer.
Front of the Mirror today, the Mirror is telling Rishi Sunak to get on with it and call a general election. So he's not saying whether it's going to be the summer. He's not saying it's not going to be the summer, Chris.
Yeah, look, I think it's really tough for Mr Sunak. OK, he's been a serial loser. I mean, the only way he got this is because of internal wranglings within the Conservative Party. We know Truss was their favourite. But the Conservative Party over the last 40 years have had to deal with a lot. I wrote down a list. Global financial crisis 2008. Had to... Austerity, didn't like what they did, but 2014. 2016, Brexit. 2019, COVID. 2022, Russia. Now we're dealing with... The Conservative Party have had to deal with a lot. Now, do you really trust Mr Starmer, who changes his mind with the weather? I remember Labour saying this: we don't want to be a party of protest, we want to be a party of power. So the naked ambition of that lot, they want to get in purely for the power. I don't believe they can do anything for the people, the rank and file. I don't. So, yeah, people give Sunak a hard time. I really understand why he's holding on. He's waiting for his flagship, Miranda Bill. He's waiting for some good news in the future. Give him a break.
Thank you very much indeed. Chris Akabusi there and Paula London.
Thank
really
you both. Appreciate it. Time now for a chat.
Let's find out where the rain is going to hit today. Because that's all there is. Marco Batenga.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK during the week ahead, all of us seeing some rain at times, but temperatures will also be on the rise. Back to the detail for today now, and we've got an east-west split weather-wise across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving in across many western spots from the south, turning heavy at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk breeze too. That rain reaching Scotland as we head into the afternoon. So it's the east and southeast that's set to hold on to the best of the conditions. Certainly the southeast of England seeing plenty of sunshine, and in the sunshine it should feel fairly pleasant out and about, with fairly gentle winds towards the southeast too. Temperatures peaking at 16 or 17 degrees, nearer 12 to 14 towards the northwest. As we head into the evening and during the overnight period, further outbreaks of rain will move in across many northern and western parts of the UK, moving up there from the south and again turning quite heavy in nature at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk southerly wind. So it's always the southeast holding on to the clearest skies, but wherever you are, it will be a frost-free night, certainly much milder than in recent nights, lows in the range 7 to 10 Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, the east-west split continues with further pulses of rain moving up across many western spots as we go through the day. Again, the outbreaks of rain turning heavy at times and still quite breezy out across western areas, whereas further east, plenty of fine weather around, lots of sunshine, but notice 1 or 2 showers developing across the southeast as we head into the afternoon. Temperatures are still on the climb, though, up to 18 Celsius towards the southeast, so still pretty warm for the time of year, near 17 degrees at best in the north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M2, there are queues heading into Belfast after a breakdown earlier at Junction 1B near Belfast Docks. The queues back to Junction 4 at Newton Abbey. In Murray, the M96 is closed each way at Keith, where weekend roadworks have overrun. On the M56 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down between Junction 7 and 6 from Bowden to Hale. It's sloped towards and past there. In Lincolnshire, the A158 and other approaches to the Gunby roundabout are closed after an accident. And on the M25 in Kent, the inside lane is closed each way for emergency repairs near Junction 5 for the M26. There are clockwise queues back along the M25 from Junction 4 at Orpington, and there are also long delays for around 7 miles or so on the M26 approaching the M25. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We've blown the budget by giving you the chance to win a totally terrific £20,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer spectacular. You could use that cash to splash out on a holiday, make the garden glam, buy a new car, or just save it for a rainy day. Whatever you'd spend £20,000 on, make sure you don't miss the chance to make it yours. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's the 29th of April. Very good to see you. Eamonn and Isabel here. This is Breakfast on GB News. Leading that news this morning.
Tensions are growing between the UK and Ireland as Number 10 attacks EU double standards and refuses to take back asylum seekers until France do the same. Mark White has the latest.
Well, Dublin wants a returns agreement to send these migrants back over the border to the UK, but Britain says it won't accept any migrants back unless France takes the migrants back who've crossed from the Channel.
Border Force officials claim Channel migrants are using children as human shields. It's a GB News exclusive.
A clampdown on disability benefits as millions face the biggest welfare reforms in a generation. The Work and Pension Secretary, Mel Stride, spoke to us earlier.
That benefit, along with others, actually, in terms of costs, have been spiralling ever upwards, and we know that over the next 5 years, currently, PIP is due to be costing an additional £13 billion per year.
King Charles is to return to public life tomorrow as he prepares to meet cancer patients following his own diagnosis. Royal biographer Angela Levin here at 9:15.
Good morning. We'll see an east-west split in the weather across the UK today. Outbreaks of rain mainly reserved for western spots. The brightest skies always further east, but I'll have all the details later on.
I have a lot of questions, a lot of statements on health today. Labour's mental health reforms to be announced today, they say, will give people their lives back. Let's speak to Ellie Reeves. Ellie's the Deputy National Campaign Coordinator. We say good morning to her. And Ellie, what do you mean by giving people their lives back?
Well, at the moment, people are struggling to access the mental health support that they need, which is why we've set out proposals to transform mental health services. So we would put in place 8,500 specialist mental health workers and community hubs with open access in every community so people can get the support that they need. But we know that far too many young people are waiting too long for mental health treatment, often in excess of 6 months, sometimes years. So we'll put a specialist mental health support worker in every school so that mental health is tackled at a really early age to prevent problems getting bigger for people.
Curious what your position, the Labour Party's position is on the welfare reforms that the government are proposing today. They say that you're being sort of vague in response to it because you don't want to admit that actually it's hugely expensive to continue to pay for people to be off work and sick, and yet you're not probably going to openly say these measures are needed to get people back into work. But can it really be right that people with, as you describe, mental health problems are, as the Prime Minister puts it, parked on benefits? Surely getting back to work helps with that and helps with socialisation and moving forward.
Yeah, well, the government have published a consultation and we'll need to look at what exactly it is that they're saying. But they've had a long time to get to grips with this. The reality is that the welfare bill is too high and people that can work should work. But at the moment, the system is set up in such a way that doesn't support people getting into work. So one of the things that we've said is that we'll reform job centres. So there's a duty on job centres to work with other agencies to break down barriers for good employment. So, you know, for example, if someone can't work because they are on an NHS waiting list, awaiting, I don't know, a hip replacement, well, there's no duty on the job centre to work with the NHS to make sure that things are happening and moving in the right direction. If someone has mental ill health, there is very, very little support for them unless they reach a crisis point, which is why we've put forward our proposals today. But also, in relation to...
Why can't you comment, though, on the proposals the government are putting forward? They're talking about, I think, 400,000 new places for speaking therapies. They're investing a large amount of money, as they describe it, in mental health funding, almost £5 billion of extra funding over the past 5 years for those people, expanding mental health services. Why won't you say whether or not you think that these plans are a good idea?
Well, we need to see the detail of it. And as I say, it's a consultation that's been announced. But what's really important is that there is that mental health support in place. And when you think about PIP, for example, personal independence payments, at the moment it doesn't encourage people to try work because if someone who's claiming PIP goes into work, then they risk losing that benefit and going through a lengthy reassessment process if the work doesn't work out for them. So it doesn't give people confidence to take that plunge of going into work. So that's why we have said that people will be able to try work. They'll take that plunge into work without automatically losing that benefit. And the same with access to work as well. We'd reform that. So people who want to get in to work who are disabled will know what support, what aids and assistance they would get before they take up that offer of work, knowing what they get, again, giving people the confidence to get into work. So you know, that's what we've set out in our proposals for reform.
Ellie Reeves, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it. We're now going to talk to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. And, Mark, we're talking about senior border officials who have told GB News that they're deeply alarmed that Channel migrants are using their children as human shields. Tell us more.
Yeah, they've said this is a worrying development. Clearly, it comes against the backdrop of rapidly intensifying levels of violence that are facing French police on the beaches of northern France as they try to reach these boats and puncture them to stop them getting into the water in the first place. And what's happening is that bands of migrants are attacking police with sticks and stones and machetes, even firearms. There was an incident over the weekend at a migrant camp near Dunkirk in which a migrant from Kurdistan, a Kurdish migrant, was shot in the chest and seriously injured in gang rivalries there in the camps. And that is being played out on the beaches as well. And as part of that, increasingly what they're doing now is they're using children and women, in fact, to push in front to stop the French police getting to them and reaching these boats. They're really, really concerned about what is a deteriorating and chaotic situation.
And it sounds like that may have been a part in that tragedy we saw last week where a child and a number of people were trampled to death on board or underneath the boat. There were increasingly violent scenes, weren't there, between the police and the people smugglers. Why is it getting worse? Why isn't this solvable?
It's big business for the criminal gangs out there. So there's rivalry between the gangs for their share of the business. But on top of that, there are increasing numbers of migrants, particularly from Africa, who are coming up, who simply don't have the thousands of pounds to pay the migrants to get on the boats. So they've adopted this relatively new tactic that is extremely worrying, where when the other migrants who paid for their tickets are pushing a boat out to sea, then you'll get a group of dozens of migrants storming them, rushing that boat, fighting them to get on the boat, which is indeed what happened last Tuesday with about 50 African migrants who were fighting with the other migrants on the beach. There was 112 on that boat that normally holds about 50 or 60. It's overloaded at 50 or 60. 112 is just ridiculous.
Mark, this kind of feeds into the whole debate, though, of whether the Rwanda flights will actively be a deterrent. If they're facing these kinds of scenes and still prepared to cross the Channel, will the chance that 1 in 100 of them might get picked up and popped on a flight which might or might not take off have any impact on that decision to risk their lives and cross the Channel at all?
Well, let's see how the Rwanda plan actually plays out in practice. There have been a lot of claims that it's only going to take 300 people. That is not my understanding of how it's going to work. I've always been of the impression that I've got from my sources that thousands will be sent. And those coming across effectively over a time period, there's a very high chance that they will be sent immediately or at least within weeks to East Africa as it's up and running. Only if they are sending very significant numbers to East Africa will the Rwanda plan be seen as a deterrent. Otherwise, you're going to take the chance. If you think there's only, a 1 in 50 chance that you're going to be sent off to Rwanda, you're probably going to take that chance.
Thank you, Mark. Mark's our Home and Security Editor. Thank you very much indeed. The time is 9 minutes past 9 o'clock. Summer just around the corner. And here, right now, is the Great British Giveaway.
Yeah, £20,000 in cash up for grabs. Here's how it could be yours.
We've blown the budget by giving you the chance to win a totally terrific £20,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer spectacular. You could use that cash to splash out on a holiday, make the garden glam, buy a new car, or just save it for a rainy day. Whatever you'd spend £20,000 on, make sure you don't miss the chance to make it yours. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
A whole big agenda coming up at 9:30 with Andrew Pearson, Beverly Turner on Britain's Newsroom. What have you got, guys?
Well, we're talking about this mental health crackdown, as well as they're calling it, as the government call it. I'm a bit baffled as to who it's going to win any votes from. I'm not sure it's going to win any votes.
Well, I think they meant... It shouldn't be just about that, of course, because when an election's only months away. But I think a lot of people watching this program think, how are there nearly 3 million people on sickness benefit? Why?
How can it have doubled since 2019? And the cost to the taxpayer, we can't carry on at this rate.
A colleague was telling us just outside that a friend has lost their mother, has been signed off with stress. That's grief.
Yes. Well, Mel Stride came out with this extraordinary, but I actually think quite powerful comment, and he said the welfare system should not be paying people to deal with the ordinary difficulties of life.
Yeah. Relationship breakup, for God's sake, people getting mental health. It's madness. But also, we're going to be talking about Mark White's excellent thing on asylum and kids being used as human shields. And good news, the King is going to be performing some official engagements. That's a good news.
It'll be great to see him back.
The bad news is Harry's coming here next week. Big service at St Paul's Cathedral. Will any royals attend it?
I don't think any royals are likely to, are they? But you know what? It's all about the servicemen and women. I feel sorry for those who are involved in Invictus, that actually now all that anyone talks about Invictus is Harry and Meghan, rather than actually the incredible role the Games have played in sort of rehabilitating their lives.
It gets overshadowed, doesn't
it? And it has been a great operation by Harry. It's a great success for charity. But I'm afraid you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much indeed.
Look forward to seeing
Andrew
you.
and Bev from 9:30.
Right, well, on Royal Matters, Angela Levin will be here. She'll have all the latest and all the big royal stories and lots more after this. See you in a moment.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
The International Monetary Fund has estimated that Russia will outgrow all advanced economies in 2024. This is in spite of all the sanctions the West has imposed on Russia, in spite of its removal of the SWIFT banking system, in spite of the fact that Germany has almost entirely weaned itself off Russian gas, and in spite of the 50,000 soldiers who have died and the endless resources it has poured into the Ukraine war. So, what are we missing here? Why is Russia going to grow more than the rest of us? Well, it's simple. Russia is willing to make use of its own energy resources to provide abundant supply to its citizens. Increased supply means lower prices, and cheap energy is inextricably linked to economic growth. But since 2008, the United States has grown at twice the rate of the United Kingdom. The big difference is that America has much lower energy prices, while the UK insists on masochistic green policies. But it's no surprise that the Green fanatics in the Scottish government, where they know how to be fanatics, have had to backtrack on their flagship greenhouse gas reduction target. The SNP has committed to reducing Scotland's CO2 emissions by 75% by 2030. Now, the Climate Change Committee has reviewed its policy and advised that the absurd reduction target is out of reach.
Can we accept the CCC's recent re-articulation that this Parliament's interim 2030 target is out of reach? We must now act to chart a course to 2045.
It is time to recognise the truth, that net zero by 2050 is unrealistic and unaffordable. It's time we rid ourselves of this foolish and costly idea that will simply make people cold and poor. We need to prioritise cheap energy for Britain's consumers and for companies, for industry, enabling economic growth that will benefit us all.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections, we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News.
Just want to round off the programme today with a lot of royal news as to what's happening, including King Charles back to public life no later than tomorrow.
Yes.
And just a week to go before Prince Harry visits Britain to mark the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games. Could a family reunion of any form be in store? Here's royal biographer Angela Levin. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good to see you. Good news that the King's back.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, Australia, newspaper from Australia rang me at 6 a.m. and said, "Can we interview you? It's going to be terrible news about the King." So the whole day I was absolutely distraught. And then it was absolutely magic to hear that he's actually going to be allowed to go out and meet people, not inside very much, but outside, take it easy, still having the treatment, but that he wants to go tomorrow to a cancer place where he can talk to the people who are suffering. I thought that was an amazing gesture because he can really boost them. I mean, that's what royals do when they go to hospital. People feel suddenly they can win and get well again.
Well, the trouble is he'll be under pressure to talk about his own condition.
No, I don't think they will. I don't think patients would ask him about that. You know, he will just be positive. He will control the conversation, won't he? They don't say, "Which type have you got, Your Royal Highness?" I don't think they would. And I think that it also helps Princess Catherine because she can see what he's doing very well. And I think a lot of this, I have to say, is the Queen, Camilla. You know, I wrote her biography and she's got this very, very strong instinct of knowing what is right at the right moment. And the fact that she could take all the nastiness that when they separated from Diana, that now she knows exactly what King Charles needs, and she's been there so solidly about the work and the engagements, and also giving him. When you saw the picture of their 19th wedding anniversary that came out yesterday, you can see that they are so interacted together, and I think that actually feeling you're loved is just as important as having a pill.
I think there's a lot of similarities between the Queen and the Princess of Wales. I think they're both such great partners for the King and Prince William, just temperamentally as well. They're very good in the background at supporting the leading man. They're sort of quite stoical. And I can see why, actually, both of them have chosen those leading ladies.
They're very close, actually, which has obviously helped William get on better with his father. Camilla helped Catherine know what to do when she joined the royal family, what the protocol was, and to help her. And Catherine was very grateful, unlike Meghan, who she tried to do as well and was not interested. And I think that's right. I also think that it's very important that someone gets what they need and what they like to recover from things, not just medication.
Well, we've got next week then Prince Harry will come over from LA and he'll attend the Invictus Games. What can you tell us about that? Will that pass without controversy?
No, this will be at St Paul's Cathedral to celebrate the 10th year of the Invictus Games. But he won't be going to see his father or brother. It's told that he won't be here for very long. Meghan's going to go straight to Africa because she met the Nigerian group and she likes that. So he'll be whizzing off. He won't see anybody. But he's no longer very popular. For the last couple of years, have had lots of emails from people saying, "Can't you stop it?" Because he's turning it from trying to encourage the victims of war to be strong to being a royal sort of show yourself off.
We don't know for sure, though, do we, that he won't be meeting his father? I mean, his father allowed a visit last time he was in London for one of his court cases, like we're seeing here. It was a short visit, but they did meet up. So there is a chance, isn't there, that
there is
father
a
and
small
son
chance, but he's going to rush
together.
off to Africa to meet Meghan there, you see. It's been said that she's not coming, and he'll have to rush off. But what's interesting is that Mike Tilly, who's the husband of Zara, the King's
niece,
granddaughter.
Her granddaughter.
Yes, that he's been given a high position to do something about the Invictus Games. I think Harry's absolutely furious of this. It has been announced, but very quietly. Some people say they want Harry because he's the beginning of the whole Invictus Games, and other people say that it would be delightful that they don't do all this nonsense about being royal. They don't want Meghan making speeches. They don't want her leading marches. She did lead of people who were in winning last year, and she walked as if she was at a dress show, and they were walking behind her looking very angry because she doesn't really know very much about the army and the military.
Meanwhile, 13 years ago, as a country, we were all holding street parties and celebrating the marriage of the Prince and Princess of Wales, Kate and William. Can't believe it's been 13 years, and I believe 20 years since they got together.
Yeah, 10
That's
years.
been a lasting relationship. And what an incredible day that was. Not only was it nice weather at this time in April, but I mean, it's almost a bit like JFK moment. We all know where we were as these two got married, don't you think? It's one of those moments in history you'll always remember.
I was hosting
I was working as well. I was in Tetbury at one of the
But I don't
royal
think
parties.
people will remember where they were
Don't
on that day.
I
No,
think
I
they
don't.
do.
But what I remember,
World they might.
Yes, they
what
do.
I remember is the way they kept looking at each other. They had a special look, and they would smile, you know, and had a sort of speech in silence, you know. And I think it's been a very happy marriage, very solid. She's been, as you said, very helpful with getting William to know what a father is like, which he didn't really know because he wasn't that sort of a family. And
Well, she won't be able to wait today till he comes home from work with a tablecloth.
It's lace, the anniversary. There might be nice, pretty lace things that he can get. It doesn't have to be a tablecloth. Mind you, I've reached a stage in life where a tablecloth I love a tablecloth as a gift. So maybe that's what happens when you're my age. I'm the same age as Kate.
I think the kids will make lovely cards because they're quite good at.
And look at all the lace she wore on their wedding day. That was the first time anyone wore a dress like that, and then everyone I know tried to copy it. After their wedding. I think it's happy memories. 13 years. Wish them a very happy wedding anniversary today, and I hope that goes some way to helping her.
And I hope that will be a special day for her. Her family will probably certainly ring or go around and see her, and that will give her more courage and more hope.
Well, you don't expect the brothers to be meeting up then to offer congratulations on that one. But meanwhile, then, after Invictus Games, Harry heads to Africa.
Yes.
Why is Meghan so keen on this African visit?
Well, she looked at her heritage and she found that she was 43% African. And so she said during the Invictus Games that she'd love to find out more about it. So one of the departments there of the government have invited her over there because they would also like to have the Invictus Games there.
All right.
And she's absolutely delighted to go. She'll be in heaven to see that, you know, there's people who understand her and what it's all about. I mean, it's Nigeria that it's actually shown in the investigation. So she'll be very happy.
Her DNA showed Nigerian heritage. Interesting, didn't know that.
But she won't be, she'll be bypassing the UK.
OK.
Possibly wise.
Yes.
Angela, got to leave it there. Thank you very much for that roundup. Really appreciate that. With the time at 24 minutes past 9, we will say goodbye to you. Thank you very much indeed for watching. We will be back tomorrow morning bright and early from 6.
Yes, we will, all the way till 9:30. But up next, it is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. That is, of course, after your forecast. Have a great day.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK during the week ahead, all of us seeing some rain at times, but temperatures will also be on the rise. Back to the detail for today now, and we've got an east-west split weather-wise across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving in across many western spots from the south, turning heavy at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk breeze too. That rain reaching Scotland as we head into the afternoon. So it's the east and southeast that's set to hold on to the best of the conditions. Certainly the southeast of England seeing plenty of sunshine, and in the sunshine it should feel fairly pleasant out and about, with fairly gentle winds towards the southeast too. Temperatures peaking at 16 or 17 degrees, nearer 12 to 14 towards the northwest. As we head into the evening and during the overnight period, further outbreaks of rain will move in across many northern and western parts of the UK, moving up there from the south and again turning quite heavy in nature at times, accompanied by a fairly brisk southerly wind. So it's always the southeast holding on to the clearest skies, but wherever you are, it will be a frost-free night, certainly much milder than in recent nights, lows in the range 7 to 10 Celsius. As for Tuesday, well, the east-west split continues with further pulses of rain moving up across many western spots as we go through the day. Again, the outbreaks of rain turning heavy at times and still quite breezy out across western areas, whereas further east, plenty of fine weather around, lots of sunshine, but notice 1 or 2 showers developing across the southeast as we head into the afternoon. Temperatures are still on the climb, though, up to 18 Celsius towards the southeast, so still pretty warm for the time of year, near 17 degrees at best in the north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Very good morning. Richard Sunak's going to be taking a Q&A this morning at 10:15. We're going to be bringing you some of that.
He's going to be talking about Rwanda. He's going to be talking about this crackdown on the mentally ill, who, up to my view, quite a lot of them are swinging the lead. 2.8 million on permanent sickness benefit. How can that be? Great Mark White package about children being used as effectively human shields by the asylum seekers crossing the channel.
Why might we be in a mental health crisis? Let us know.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Murray, the A96 remains closed in both directions at Keith, where weekend roadworks have overrun. In Lancashire, the A56 is closed in both directions along Skipton Road at Colne after an accident causing queues. In Lincolnshire, the A158 and other approaches to the Gunby roundabout are closed after an accident. The M40 in Buckinghamshire is partly blocked southbound between junctions 5 and 4 from Stokenchurch to High Wycombe, causing queues. And on the M25 in Kent, the inside lane is closed each way, just west of junction 5 for the M26 for emergency repairs. There are queues from junction 4 at Orpington, and there are also roughly 5 miles of queues back along the M26